What's up, guys? I'm here alone, but I'm not gonna be here for the whole 2 hours alone because we're gonna have Will on, just like we did in part one of this world's recap. Will's gonna be here joining me. It's gonna be just the boys, having a nice time with the lads. No beers, but a nice time with the lads nonetheless. Um, we're going to talk about tool drive. We're going to talk about four-wheel drive. We're going to talk about a little bit of the future of where we're going to go in 10 scale worlds for the next time. Um, it's going to be a blast. I think it's going to be a little bit under 3 hours, if I'm not wrong. So not too long. Okay, not too long. It's not too bad, and it's pretty entertaining. So I think you're going to like it. Um, but you guys want this to be a little shorter, so I'm not gonna waste your time. I'm gonna drop that intro.
Nitro is the glory,
but it only pays the bills.
Welcome to the No Name RC podcast. Get ready for some serious bench racing. But be warned, we speak our minds, express our thoughts, and sometimes things can get a little rowdy.
Hate, and he just was influenced by the hate coming from the left, the hate coming from the right. And let's get back to more club racing and less of this racing.
It's hard not to be arrogant when you're always right.
See what I mean? That's exactly why people call you arrogant, Max.
You may not agree with everything we say, but it's definitely worth a listen.
And our pick, can you stop whatever you're doing?
Join your host, Letty the Great, with co-hosts and guests as they get together to chat RC.
Hey, after that race that I watched this morning, I have to talk about it.
Here we go. $100 right here, $100 throw. Oh no!
I like this.
All right. It's me here, Max, the dictator of the show. For a second podcast in a row. It's kind of cheating because we recorded this at once, but it's still two podcasts in a row. You have to listen to just me and Will. No Keenan, no watermelon seeds, no nothing. It's just me, my tangents, my ramblings, and so on. And Will, he doesn't watermelon seed me. He's much better of a buddy than Keenan. Keenan is just like, hey, I don't want to hear about it. Watermelon seed, blah 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 blah. I don't care. I don't care. Will doesn't care. We just talking. We just the boys having fun. But all joking aside, great to be back. With a few good podcast, big worlds behind us. We'll talk about that a lot. And before all that, we have to pay some bills. It's a professional operation. Blah 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 blah. Uh, I don't know why I'm going on about this like this, but I do really appreciate. I know Keenan really appreciates because this pays his house. He has a roof over his head thanks to these guys. J Concepts, our title sponsor. Huge shout out to them. They've been incredibly good to us over the this year. Been on title sponsor. I hope our title sponsor for next year as well. They've been really good to us, as I said. And then obviously our premium sponsor. Some of these long time on the show. High Tech RCT, Sidewinder Fuels, Latera Racing, Invisiblespeed, ML Toys, Sidepiece Racing, and Dollar Hobbyz, as well as our standard sponsors, Fly Sky, Get Shit Done Coffee, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Klinik RC. Thanks you to all of you guys. And then we have also some NNRC drivers. David Ronnefalk, probably one of the earliest drivers, to be honest. He's been flying our flag for a long time. Robert Battier, Alex and Hackberg, Star Wars fan. He's like a bestie with Keaton these days, I think. Matty G, Becca and Yona, and Mason Fuller. And I think there's going to be a few additions to that at some point. I think the list will be getting longer. Um, but thank you to these guys. It's really nice to see drivers repping the show. I think a lot of these guys, if I'm not wrong, Alex listens to, at least I've heard him listen to pretty much every podcast. So um, a lot of support from these guys, and obviously um, we support them. And biggest thanks from me, and I think also from these companies, is to you, people who listen to the show. Um, and also the guys who keep this thing going, our patrons, our YouTube members. Without you guys, I don't think this would be possible. Thank you. Thank you a lot. And without all out of the way, um, I think we can get on with the show. Um, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible because I know you guys don't want to listen to me ramble that much. Um, yeah, all the thanks to all of the people who support us. Um, and we'll start off now moving into the tool drive recap. Um, and we'll go straight to it. The recap is brought to you by Invisiblespeed and Dollar Hobbies. We'll start off with the Invisiblespeed advertisement. My favorite. Stop scrolling, guys.
Stop scrolling, you wanna be Lewis Hamilton. Learn something new with Invisiblespeed. You can't do everything at 100% maximum speed. You have to be smooth. I mean, when you drive a real car, if you drive a real car, how do you just, when you get to a 90-degree corner to turn into the parking lot, do you go like that with the steering wheel? Do you like slam on the throttle and the brake? No, you probably turn the wheel smooth and get on the throttle smooth. Same thing with an RC car. If you want to learn more and make your speed visible, stop scrolling.
Stop scrolling, guys. Go check out Invisiblespeed. I don't think that offer is still valid. That's on that ad. But there's another offer I know. Jake who likes his discounts and whatnot. So go check that out. And then Dollar Hobbies. If you don't know Dollar Hobbies yet, go check them out at dollarhobbies.com. They got over 13,000 RC products in stock, over 130 top brands, and whether you're a racer, basher, crawler, or just getting into the hobby, they got you covered. They have an awesome brick and mortar store up in Minnesota. They have an indoor carpet track, and they switch between on-road and off-road. They have race nights. They have rentals. They have birthday parties. They have corporate events. They have everything, and they've even got a skilled staff on hand to help with the newer racers, with the repairs, advice, anything. They got you covered, dude. And for all the listeners of this show, you get something too. Because if you use code LEFTY at checkout, you're going to save 10% on everything you order from them. So using code LEFTY in all caps, and you get 10% off at www.dollarhobbies.com. Big thanks to Dollar Hobbies for supporting the podcast. Show them some love as they've showed some love to the podcast. One of our newer sponsors, really glad to have them on. And with the ad reads and advertisements out of the way, I'll let Will take it away for you guys.
I think it's going to be our longest. This is going to be our longest episode ever. I can already
don't know.
see Keenan. He's just going to send FFS again in our group chat.
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna be that long because we already did our live shows. So I've sort of got most of the things, most of the thoughts out there already. So it's not gonna be as bad. But yeah. Let's move in for practice. We had Marcus topping the times in front of Orlowski. Tool drive, obviously. We'll start off with tool drive. And practice day, seating day. Kaerup on top, Orlowski in second, and Koki Kato in third. I was definitely surprised to see Koki here. Not as surprised to see Kaerup and Michael at the top. But then again, I was surprised to not see Rivkin or maybe not Champlin, but a lot of these other Americans, Phend and so on here. So somewhat surprising, somewhat not surprising. Top 10. I can actually show you guys also who are watching this on video, so we can get the names of the brands up there. What was your thoughts on this, Will?
Yeah, someone like Kuki, I knew he was a good driver, but I didn't realize he was like that high, like that good of a driver. Like I think we kind of sometimes underestimate some of the Asian drivers. Like, because I remember Yuki Segura, like 2019, he came third out of nowhere. And then
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
Kuki, I have heard of his name before, and now I know he did go to the warm up as well, but he's still, I'm guessing this is after practice. Yeah, it is. So like,
yeah,
he was very quick and very consistent. A lot of the guys apparently they call him I think it was something like the silent wolf or something, because he's not, much of a talker. Maybe because I don't know how good his English is, but he's absolutely ballistic around the track, and he's very consistent. So I think I have to really give a huge props to him. I feel like someone I wasn't expecting, at least after practice, was Bartek. I know Bartek's another one of those guys that people think he's kind of just a on-road, no, not on-road, sorry, a carpet guy. But even at the Euros, like he surprised a lot of people. But I guess Hoodie Arena, you could probably say he had a lot of practice. But then I guess here, so I mean, I don't know if he went to the warm-up or not. Even if he did, he's, right up there after practice. So I think like there was definitely a few guys. I mean, like you said, there was a bunch of guys missing from that top 10, like Dakota, Ronnefalk, Una, but I know he kind of turned that around quite swiftly towards the end as well. So there's definitely a little bit of a mix of results, but I think there were a lot of guys in that top 10 which I think deserve to be there. But there was a few guys where I think you could say were a bit surprised with. I'm surprised they weren't in there after practice.
yeah. I wrote down in my notes about Donnelly, because at this point I was like, okay, he's in the fight. It's not like he's out of anything. Well in there, no worry. He's gonna make the main at least, kind of what we expected. But after the practice, he was nowhere to be seen really. Uh, Ended up not doing that well in qualifying. So this was the last we'll see of him in these charts. And then those guys who we don't see here, Ronnefalk in 15th, Phend in 49th. So Bartek the best X-ray, but behind them, really, really poor run. And I think just they started so far back from all the other brands in terms of their setup. They had that, what was it, 12 millimeters shorter chassis. Just they was just off in terms of setup. They went really far one direction, which was obviously the wrong direction in the end. And yeah, Bartek able to make into the top 10, but apart from him, it was definitely a real struggle bus day for them on Monday, was it, when they started. Yeah, not much to say about actually about. Like I think they got better throughout the event, but they just started so far off. So, um, bad one for them. And
Yeah, it's
then
quite
obviously,
surprising because I think a lot of people like, say the car is very good, and I think even the locals were saying in the low grip that's probably one of the better cars to have. So I think even around the world is shown. I know in the Keenan, I know he would love to go on this now because he loves to say how they're almost bigger than Associated in America and all that. But like, yeah, I think it was safe to say that I thought they were gonna. He said Tugo looks like a very solid platform, and they would have, I guess you could say, finished a little bit higher. But it looks like I don't know if it's because of maybe a lot of guys. I don't know what everyone was running. I'm not in tune with it, but I don't know if everyone tried to stick with that 12 mil chassis and then they kind of realized they actually didn't need that much grip. Like and everyone was hunting for steering. I don't know if that was part of it, but who knows? That's kind of my observation.
Yeah, I think the higher than expected level of grip really hurt X-Ray the most. And to be honest, like either way, the 12 millimeter shorter chassis just sounds ridiculous to me. So I do have to say it's wild that they even went that route. All right. Moving on from practice, I think we covered most. Um, Champlin, Rivkin also out of the top 10, but it's only practice, so I don't think it really matters that much in the end. So going into qualifying, Kaerup from out of nowhere, TQ's first 3 rounds. Q4 tries something, I guess, but doesn't work out. No harm, no foul. Um, I think the guys behind him, if you look at sort of the results, I think Rivkin is the only one who came close to beating him. There was just a few tenths between them going into the final lap in Q3, but Rivkin thought he finished, which is wild to think about. He actually thought he had already finished, pulled off from a possible fight of DQ. And then in Q4, it was Kobevic with a Schumacher to take the TQ, which I do have to say they did seem to have found something towards the end of the qualifying, because in the beginning it was in Q1 and Q2 it was Kaerup and Bata in 1 and 2, and then in Q3 Kaerup and Rivkin 1 and 2. Brock and Kobevic was third. Either one of them was third in all those rounds, but there was quite a few seconds off from the TQ every time. But in Q4, Marcus out of the game, Bata having tougher round, and then Rivkin not having a good one either. Kobe got to TQ. Second went to Horn with an associated, which was quite of a surprise, to be honest, because he had a rough qualifying other than that one round. And Orlowski got a third, which actually really helped me put him in the main because he was having a real tough first day of qualifying before that. So that's kind of first day of qualifying. Kaerup on top, Kobevic in second, and Bata in third. And Champlin was way down because he only had 2 good scores. And Q5 was a really deciding one, and that was going to be run in the morning. The top heat was going to go on the track first. The second highest heat was going to go on the track second. And Champlin ended up taking the TQ, which jumped him from, if I don't remember wrong, he was all the way down in like 5th or 6th after the first day, and that TQ jumped him to second on the grid. All of the associated guys had a really tough run in the last one. Schumacher seemed to be good. Of course, I'm forgetting about Jona. He was the sort of the best associated, and he finished third. Ronnefalk got in a second, so X-Ray figures something out definitely. But I think Q5, it really twisted things around from the first day, and Marcus was still struggling. So it was not only a fluke in Q4. I think Q5 was I think that's when the worry started for him, when the Schumacher guys go up and do really well, and then he kind of struggles, and the TQ guy who's really on pace starts from behind him. Even though Marcus locked in the TQ early, I think it's one of the most interesting qualifyings we've had in a while, because of just the range of drivers and that were near the top. Yeah, that's sort of my takeaways from how the qualifying went on. And then if you have anything to add, feel free. I'll bring up the graphic of the overall. So
Yeah,
so
no,
we
of
can kind of
course.
get an idea who were there.
I definitely think it just comes back to the track, like especially that morning, because basically every morning we would have some sort, obviously, other than proceeding, well, practice day, obviously, both the qualifying day and finals day, like you always have some sort of practice in the morning, and then obviously finals day you had one just 3-minute practice, I think it was, and then just went straight into the last round of qualifying. So I think, pardon me, like that last round was kind of the first time that day they hit the track and get a proper 5-minute run in. Like I was saying, like the track would be drying in that Q5. So I think that threw a lot of drivers off, to be honest. There's a little bit wetter in the morning. That's probably where like you'd probably say the local guys would be a lot better. And actually looking at Lachlan's result, for example, he got his best round score in that morning. But I definitely think that was a big part of it. And like I think someone like Yuna, as we know, he's very, very good in low grip. And I think he was in the B heat. So I think with him, it was these guys, because Brock was also in the B heat. So I think that also was like a big role in that final qualifier where we always noticed at the end of every round there's a little bit of a break and then the dust seems to settle, and a track definitely for whoever's on next is always a little bit more like, it's definitely less grip, it's definitely a bit sketchy out there. But I think these guys, the top guys, even when they have the B heat, they basically have I think for sure a better track. So I think that's why you kind of saw, like, not taking anything away from Brock or Una, but I just think they were at the right place at the right time and they were able to get really good round scores in that last one.
Let me unmute my mic. Yeah, I think you're spot on there about the Q5. I think it was a bit. I don't think that's how you should do it. That you have only one round in the final day and it's in the morning. It's just an extra sort of random generator, but we'll leave that to the end. I'm gonna move into sort of these guys. Champlin, as we said, Q5 TQ. Kaerup really slowed down towards the end. I think Bata is the one whose end result is much worse than I think his speed was. I do think he was consistently better than Kobevic, but just made mistakes at the wrong time, and Kobevic got sort of a good run where it really mattered. Orlowski out of the game a lot of the time. He didn't really look like himself at all this week. And Rivkin, I'd say similar story. He had that one good Q3, and other than that, there's really nothing from him. In qualifying, that is. So 6th for him. I think all of the rest on the grid, well, maybe barring Horn, I think Horn should be in there. He's that level of drive that he should always be in there. But Boda, Kato, and Jona, great run for all of them. Jona had a really tough run in the beginning, but that incredible Q5 kind of solidified him into the main. Then I think
one quick thing to mention with Una, like he was pretty sick like through the first 2 days of qualifying. I was actually sharing a room with him, so like he was like the state he was in to be there, like you have to give props to him. I think he suffered a bit from a flu, which everyone seems to get this time of year. But I thought it was just worth throwing that out there because like really overcame that. So I've got to give props to him.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot about that. That's a good point. He was having a flu, and I think that really, he said himself that really hurt him, performance wise, because he was not doing that well. So that's a good point to bring out from Yuna. So another world semi for him. I think he's happy with that considering all the circumstances. Moving on to brands. Obviously, no X-rays. 3 Schumachers, 7 Associated. So Associated by far the most dominant brand. 4 Americans, 5 Europeans, and 1 Asian driver. So not so much American domination in 10 scale anymore. I think times have changed a bit. And then 4 hobby wing drivers, 2 Reedy, 1 LRP, 1 Elstrom, and 1 R1. Not a single Coyote driver, which is wild considering it seemed like over the last city season they signed everyone, and now
Well,
none
I
of
guess
them are
Mikael's
in
running
the
their
main.
lipos.
That's a fair point, but in terms of speedo and motor, they did not have anyone here on the top 10. Um, so yeah, it's a weird dynamic, but I guess sometimes it is like that. And then those drivers who we are not able to see on this list, obviously the ones who didn't make it, best X-ray in Ronnefalk in 13th, Ongaro, I think he was second in 2019 and fourth in 2022, or sorry, 2023. And BQ. That was a tough one for Ngaro. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting him to be really good this event. And then I guess we have to say Phend in 18th, not making the main. That's obviously I think it was more of an X-ray issue than Phend issue, but still, it's not a result you're looking for if you're Dakota. I don't can't remember if there's any other guys who we expected to be in the main who didn't make it. Maybe Lachlan Donnelly. He ended up finishing 14th after qualifying. We definitely would have thought him to make the main coming into the event. But I think other than that, the top 10 looks pretty much what we expected. Maybe switching Kobovic and Orlowski around. Maybe Bata, he performed better than we expected. But I think everyone else, they've kind of proven themselves already at this level. So sort of, I'd say all of those guys definitely deserve to be there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there's actually one guy I have to shout out, not just because he's a good friend, but like they're one of our guys as well. Tommy Hall, 12. He had a, to be fair, he had a. I know he was pretty gutted because he did have a 5 and 2 11s. I think he in one of them he was on for 6 or whatever, and at the time I think he said it would have helped him make the show, but I think a few of us Brits were saying like, maybe it's just us guys just trying to say we're kind of getting there a little bit, but like I have to like honestly say like and I mean we'll talk about Ben as well in 4-wheel, but I thought Tommy to be 12th at a world's level, then that kind of definitely puts him back on the radar for sure. Like I think, of course, we can touch on this later, but I think he's definitely kind of getting something again, which is really good to see.
Yeah. It's a bit of unfortunate for Tommy because I do think he is a good enough of a driver that he should be, making mains at the Worlds and so on. But something's just not clicking for him. Like, I don't know what it is that he did in 2022 at Robin Hood, and why he is not able to replicate that. But yeah, something's just not clicking with him because he's been fast at EOS. He's been beating Yona and some of these other associate guys at EOS at times. So it's not like he's that was a fluke altogether. The win in 2022. But yeah, obviously, no dirt tracks in UK. I don't think he's ever raced on dirt really, apart from the few Euros. So I guess that's something you got to say. And he's still the best guy from the UK. Obviously, not the glory days of Neil and Lee, but still the best guy from the UK.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think you're right. I think I know this will be a whole tangent in itself, but like, I think definitely like, even us Europeans, like I'm definitely UK guys, because we just haven't got any dirt tracks. So I think that's kind of a big part. But I think maybe if our guys were able to get on dirt a little bit more. Another thing I'll mention, obviously EOS being at the Hoodie Arena and on dirt, that'll be something we get onto later. I think that's going to help a bit more. But yeah, I think kind of before we go into finals, I think that was just something worth mentioning. So I think for me in qualifying, I think that's it, unless you got anything yourself.
Not really more from qualifying. And it was a quick transition. That's something I do want to say, that even if we sort of dwell on qualifying here on the podcast, at the race it seemed like, okay, qualifying's ended, next round you race. The switch from qualifying to mains at these electric events seems incredibly quick. There's no sort of off day or whatnot like we have in 8 scale. It's kind of like after qualifying ends, it's like everybody takes a breather, and then um, after that, the racing starts. It's a very different feeling that we have at these electric events, where it's kind of like, okay, qualifying ends, and now let's finish this thing. And that's kind of the feeling. Like, I don't know if it feels like that actually at the event, because it's been a while since I've attended an electric event.
It's a tricky one. I think it's a weird one because like you have qualifying and everyone's kind of like you finish qualifying. It's okay, A1 starts in an hour and a bit, so it kind of builds a lot of not suspension or how to like kind of builds a bit of a vibe, and you can tell like in the pits everyone starts to get a little bit worried and anxious, nervous. Some guys I guess who are at the back of the grid, they're obviously hoping for the best, and it kind of creates a cool atmosphere, I guess, and it happens so quickly. Well, I guess in 8 scale or other classes. Well, I also do appreciate why they do it. It's like you have a day in between, or what it will feel like a day in between qualifying and finals. So I guess the drivers actually have time to kind of overthink, maybe potentially overthink everything. But I know, I think it's kind of nice. It just goes straight into it. We had the qualifying and then bang, we're going into finals. But I guess then from a media side, the only thing is just you see qualifying, and by the time you see that post, the finals are probably already done. But
Yeah, yeah,
I think
especially
it's
in
kind of
Australia.
yeah, oh yeah, in Australia, I can imagine. I know that everyone just to see the finals had to wake up at I know UK time like 3 a.m., which
Yeah.
like literally in the middle of the night, the worst time. But yeah, I guess that's kind of yeah. I think that's a good point though that you made though.
Yeah. So let's go into the finals. I don't really know which way we should cover these. We did go sort of in depth into the two-wheel drive finals on our live recaps. Um, there was a fight, let's say, between Brock and Kaerup, but I think Brock was by far the strongest looking one. I think there was no other driver who could have won it had he started at first. Because I think he was just so much more comfortable. He had the speed. Um, everything was sort of working for him. Um, and it showed. He won it in two, took A1, took A2. Um, A1, there was this incident. I think we can talk about it a bit afterwards, unless you want to go into it now. But basically,
No,
Brock
we
and
can watch it after and go into it.
yeah, yeah, Brock and Marcus came together in A1, which allowed Brock to go through. Um, and then A2, Marcus made a slight mistake of himself by himself, and Brock beautifully, very beautifully made his way through, uh, shot it up the inside, covered the next corner, very beautifully done. And after that, Marcus, he tried to push behind him, but I think it just showed that every time he got close enough, he was already sort of over the limit of what he could do at that point, and Brock just strolled away with the win in the end. Um, I think if we look at it, Marcus could have maybe gotten second, but I think the win was definitely, it was only with Brock. Um, Let me actually bring up the results for you guys to see, but that's my opinion, that Brock was the clear winner here. I don't think, no matter really what happened, Brock would have came out on top.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, in the finals, he definitely looked stronger, but I guess was that just because he was starting behind and it's easier to chase and lead. Like, you could tell Marcus was extremely nervous going into those finals, and honestly, I don't blame him. And I think that was kind of the main thing. It's like you could see in the finals that normally Marcus, pretty good at pulling away, and I think he doesn't normally have an issue with that. But I think being at being at a world's level, being on the world stage, TQing, obviously he wants to win, and if you ask me, I think just the nerves got a little bit the better of him. Obviously he shrugged that off for four wheel clearly, but like I think that was part of it, and I think Brock being behind, I think any driver, like I think if the roles were reversed, I actually think Marcus would have won because he would have started behind, and Marcus is. I think just everyone knows it's just easier to chase and lead, but that's kind of what I personally think about it. But I know some people think that maybe Brock's car looked better, but I still think it kind of comes down to the nerves and how Marcus was feeling.
Do you think, because we had a debate about this with Keenan. Um, there was a touch between Brock and Marcus in the practice final. So Keenan, obviously, he is with his tinfoil hats and so on. He was of the opinion that that Brock, like after he did that, Marcus got more pressure on him. He got kind of flustered, and then that gave the edge to Brock. But I'm kind of more of the opinion, and there was like what fueled his theory even more was that Marcus and his dad apparently looked really panicky after a won. So there was like panic. Sorry, after the practice final, that they was really panicking and thinking of what to do and whatnot, and they didn't look comfortable after the practice final. Um, I'm of the opinion that he really slowed down towards the end of qualifying. He couldn't get the car comfortable enough when the track changed, and then that's why he was sort of really nervous going into the mains, and he didn't feel comfortable. And then he ended up making mistakes, partly because of being nervous and partly because he didn't feel comfortable. That's sort of what I think. But how was it actually in the pits? Because really you're on the AE side of the pits. Was there sort of things they were trying on the car to get it more comfortable? I think he said on an interview that they went the wrong direction. Um, but I don't know, like, was there something that you guys noticed at the AE pitch that he wasn't comfortable with the car, or was it more so that he was just nervous, like you said?
I think it was kind of, to being honest, a little bit of everything. But I think also the Schumacher guys really found something, and I think that was kind of probably enough there already. And I also think kind of what you said is kind of a valid point. I can't, to be honest, looking back, I actually can't. I probably definitely saw it for sure, but I can't remember where that little tap in the practice final happened. But I guess for sure, if you were a driver and you TQ'd all of qualifying, and then in the first practice final, they hadn't raced head to head yet, and they hadn't been in the same practice heat, and then qualifying heat. So then you go into finals, and you kind of feel like, let's say maybe Champlin has a little bit more of an edge. Then I think it's kind of normal to kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable going into those finals and nervous. Also remember Marcus is still a kid. I know he's 18 or maybe he's a little bit older, but he's still a kid. And this is like, there's a whole lot of pressure going on someone like him. And like, he's like very close to winning his world. So he's not only has he got pressure from his team, he also wants to do it. And I think he'll have more pressure from himself rather than external factors. But I think that's kind of I think there was a mix of everything. And I just think in the finals, I think it just unfortunately just didn't happen for him. And I know what they always say is like you need luck on your side to win these races. And I think it kind of just bottles down to that. I think Champlin seems like he got his car pretty good towards the end of qualifying, and I think he did a good job in the finals. And I don't really think there's anything else you can say other than that. Like, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment to it, and probably the only one who knows like the real answer is like him, like what was bothering him, or something, or if there even was, if it was just like he felt comfortable, but Champlin was just too quick in the mains. But either way, behind Champlin was obviously another American, David Bata. The Americans really pulled through in the mains in the end. Um, as I said in when I was going through qualifying, I think Davy was the one who qualified um, lower than his pace showed, and I think that really showed in the mains because he could have finished second in all three mains. If he had like a solid run in A3, he crashed on his own from second. But he had already locked in second place on it, and pretty much the only way anyone could have beaten him for second would have been if Kobevic would have gotten a win in A3, but Marcus pulled away very clearly in A3 when the Champlin was not there to sort of bother him. And by that, Marcus locked himself into third, so that sort of wraps up the podium. But behind him, there was challenges for the podium. So Rivkin, he got a third in A1, and I think he even got third in A2, if I'm not totally wrong. So Rivkin, had he finished second in A3, he would have actually beaten Marcus for the third spot on the podium. And I think it was the last lap of A3. Rivkin was clearly in second and made a little sort of bobble coming from the step down, and then just completely crashed himself out of it in the corner tabletop. One lap to go, and that dropped Rivkin from third to fifth, jumped Marcus to third, and Kobevic obviously getting the fourth overall. So looks much worse for Rivkin than he actually could have gotten in the mains. He drove really well in A1 and A2 and even A3 until that silly mistake. So although I think Champlin was the fastest and Bata was probably the second fastest, from third to fifth, any of these guys could have really been anywhere. This was just kind of how they ended up after all the carnage ended. Behind them, most of these guys finished sort of where they should be, except for maybe Orlowski. I mean, he did not drive well in the mains, but still, it's weird to see him so far down and not in the sort of. We talk about Kobevic, we talk about Champlin. So he was like the worst out of the Schumacher teammates in the main. So that's probably
Yeah, I
the
think
only.
one thing. Yeah, sorry. No, I think one thing. I think someone was saying. I think even Michael maybe said in an interview was because he has to drive so aggressive in off road, while like in touring car he's been super smooth. I think one of the things he was saying that it was so weird for him to kind of get back used to dirt, where especially on a track like this, you had to be super super smooth. I think that was one of the things he mentioned in one of the interviews that was kind of more of his struggle more than anything.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Um, and yeah, it's weird, but I think that's just the sort of the place where we are right now with Michael and the Schumacher team. That when you have two drivers who only focuses off road, which is Brock and Daniel, and then you have one driver whose focus is everything that you can think of. Um, of course, those two other drivers, if they're even close to as talented, are gonna end up beating him at some point. And I think this showed it a bit. There has also been talks that Michael has been struggling from a bit of a burnout by being being at races every single weekend and preparing for races all the time. So I think it's understandable, but it's still weird to see him down there. And that being said, the Worlds have kind of been an Achilles heel to Michael in the past. He's been doing really good in Europe, and then at the Worlds, he kind of underperforms a lot of the times. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I have from this top 10. Apart from obviously we have that one incident I wanted to discuss, and then yeah, I don't know if I said it already, but Brock established himself in a way as a number one for Schumacher at this race, which probably not a lot of people was expecting. And then another thing was that AE still, although Schumacher won, all the glory to them, AE is still, even with the B7, the dominant brand in tow drive. I think those two are like the big takeaways we can take from this. And yeah, if you have something else, feel free to add on while I get up the incident, as they say.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I have to be pretty fair here and say, like, like a massive props to Schumacher. Like, I think they've kind of started, turning things around for them because they've always kind of been known as just the only car that's really good on carpet and only really good on high grip. But I guess here, where like, okay, they were running a lot of different things, but I'm sure in their next car, it will be in there, which overall will mean it'll be a better car. So I think honestly, Schumacher have done really well as well. Like they had not just one or two, but they had three. Because I think I can't remember how many they had in the main back in Arizona. I think it might have only been Cavalieri, if I'm right, or maybe I'm wrong. I can't
I'm
remember that in
yeah,
Arizona.
I think he was the only one, yeah.
Yeah, oh, and Brock actually. So I guess there was two, but I guess those guys were obviously they've been to that track. But I think here, Kovacic and Mikael only been there a few times, and Brock, as you mentioned, had never been there. So I think to the Schumacher side, I think they're starting to really come up as a brand, and their four-wheel also looks like a great platform. I also think the associate guys. I don't think you can argue. With 7 cars in that final. I know, like from our side, like the Australia team did a fantastic job, like with getting all of us as a team like a good baseline setup for us, the Americans, and everything. And like and as well in general, just AE just did their homework. I know I'm obviously biased, but I know like they really did their homework on there, and and especially the Aussies came with some really good setups. So I think that's kind of I mean, that's kind of like my overall, like in terms of manufacturers and stuff, like my overall thoughts from two-wheel drive.
Yeah. All right. So let's go through this. One more incident that kind of this was the I'd say pretty much the only controversial point of the tool drive mains. Everything else was really clean. Rivkin making a mistake on his own. That's you know it is what it is. But this was sort of the only part where there was a little bit of controversy. Um, So let's take a look. We're going into the last lap here. Um, we have Kaerup in the lead, Brock in second. Um, Kaerup overjumps the tabletop. Brock gets side by side, and they collide in there. And this is actually pretty cool too. Davey and Brock going side by the front straight. Let me rewind a bit so we can have another look at this. So the pair of them head into the jump section. Marcus over jumps. Brock goes to the side. They collide in the air. Um, was there actually some things that sort of were discussed at the event? I did hear there was some form of a protest that they went through. How was it received at the event itself?
Yeah, so I think and obviously I'm gonna try my best to be very fair here. So I think like from both sides they had their own views. So from the associated side, I guess you could say like Marcus did that whole jump section. Other than I know he got a little bit squirrely, but he still kind of did it as normal, at least at the second bit of it. So I guess they saw it as at no fault of Marcus's own Brock, that they saw it as a takeout because Brock was all the way to the right hand side and then jumped onto the left, which I guess he's obviously trying to get back online. But then I guess the argument is that just Brock was just getting back onto the line, and that's kind of how the Schumacher guys saw it, and it was kind of just one of them. But IFMAR just they looked to the live stream and they said, and obviously they made their judgment and they declared it just it was a racing incident and just carried on. So obviously the social guys were pretty annoyed about it. But I guess obviously you could say as well, like the result already happened. And I guess the problem was that for them, Brock already won leg one. So as you can imagine, obviously that meant that Brock was one step closer to winning, which was obviously what happened. So it was a bit of I think everyone had their own view on it, which is kind of understandable. But IFMAR declared it as a racing incident, so the result just stayed as that.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously no call from the referees afterwards. They did go through it, I think, at the event, but was that something that, the AE camp was like pissed about? Was there sort of kind of, well, we've had this a lot of the events that when there's a one big team against another big team, that there's sort of a little bit of shouting, a little bit of arguing, and that was there anything like that after this? Because to me it seemed
No,
very
no,
polite.
no, no, not at all. There was no there was no sort of arguments between Schumacher and Associated or vice versa. It was kind of just very just done through IFMAR, I guess, in the protest. So, like, I know even Brent afterwards went to Brock and obviously said congratulations. I know obviously they had a good relationship in the past. So I think to be fair, like, well, obviously it wasn't ideal for Marcus and Associated, and they obviously felt it was a takeout. Like they, you know, I guess in the end, obviously the results as it was, and at least like I think it was good for them to also just at the end I was be able to say congrats to Brock kind of thing, and even though it wasn't what they wanted, and I'm sure they were gutted about it, I think that was at least a silver lining they could take away from it.
Yeah. Um, Let me bring it back. We did go through this before on the show, on the live show, but I'll put it in slow mo now so we can take a little look at it. Um, my take then was that it was a racing incident, which same sort of idea that IFMA came to. So yeah, Marcus clips that curb, sort of has to over jump that first one. When they land this jump, I'm pretty sure they're like side by side, and then the track squares to the left, and the lines just collide. I do think that Marcus sort of went too far to the right to protect it, and Brock went too far to the left to protect it. So like both of them sort of overdid what they should have done in that situation, and that, I mean, it just ended up with them coming together. Let me get
Yeah, I guess
back
that's
to
kind
where we
of.
started.
I
So
guess the
yeah,
only problem here is you can see like where Marcus landed a little bit nose high, and then looks like Brock has got a better lander, and then you can see like the line that Marcus has kind of been taking that similar kind of line through the race, and then Brock was on the right, and I guess obviously he was trying to make a move, and I think obviously it wasn't intentional. I know everyone's quick to blame each other and say he took like it was a deliberate takeout, but and obviously they don't mean to take each other out, but it's just how it ended up. So yeah, it was really unfortunate, but I think it is what it is with how it ended up. So yes, it's a tricky one because they were both just side by side and it just
yeah,
happened in the air.
yeah. That's kind of how I felt about it too when I first saw it, and yeah, I think it's just one of those racing incidents. I don't think there was like both could have been more reserved. I guess if you would had to assert blame, it would be on the side of Brock. But then again, like I do think you have to allow drivers to race. So yeah, I think racing incident, that was the right call from IFMA, and yeah, no harm, no foul in the end. And my take on this is, even if Brock would have gotten a penalty, he would have ended up winning the race in the end. That's kind of how I saw it, and yeah, I think that sort of wraps up tool drive for us. Here's a picture from the guys on the podium. Obviously, congrats to America. You got another one in the back, a bag. Congrats to Schumacher. First Tool Drive World Championship, second in off-road ever. Congrats to Davey Bata. First Worlds podium, first Worlds final too, if I'm not totally wrong. Really great run. Best associated driver. And then even if a third seems bad for Marcus in the situation he's in, that's still a world's podium. You got to give it to him. He's had an amazing year. So even if it was just this, obviously we're gonna move in the full drive, which he ended up clinching the title, which we all know. But um, I think for Marcus, even considering everything, it's a good result. So congrats to all these guys.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I definitely think Battle is someone that's a bit underestimated at times. So to see him in second, that's not only is just a great result, but I think that's also going to be a good result for his career. Which, yeah, so because I've seen him in the last few years, like really come up. He seems he's a very quiet guy, but obviously on the track he's quite lethal. And yeah, obviously Marcus, even like you said, like before this, the kid just won the world in e-buggy like a few weeks ago. So and obviously he did it in 4-wheel, so I can imagine his season's been pretty damn good. And then Brock to claim the title as well, like for Schumacher as well, which is a huge milestone for them, and also for himself as well. I didn't see him personally, nothing against the guy, just didn't see him as a contender before the event. But obviously, I guess he kind of showed everyone why he was there, why he's a winner, and why he was there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a similar story than what it was with Vikin when he won his first title. That the pressure is a big one. When it's one event every 2 years, there's a lot of pressure. And like you said with Marcus, I think that was one of his biggest downfalls, the pressure. But Brock, his attitude was like, no matter what happens, I'm really not gonna get too much pressure over it. And I think it really helped him in the end. He did not show any pressure. He did not make any silly mistakes, and he came out as a winner. Yeah, I think that wraps up Tool Drive. Ain't that right?
Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps 2-wheel. So yeah, congrats to those guys. And I guess now let's get into our 4-wheeled contraptions.
Yeah, so let's move into those four-wheel driven contraptions, as you as you said.
I don't know why I said that. I just felt like mixing it up, mixing it up a bit.
Yeah. Practice started. There was the off day, so they had the chance to fix the track. I think they started it on Saturday, and the race ended on Monday. We can talk about that in our final wrap up, but I think that's weird. I think when you end a Worlds event, it should be preferably Saturday, but at the latest Sunday. Monday just seems off to me.
Yeah, it kind of seemed. I didn't think much about it until I was there, but it did actually seem a bit weird because I think it was Monday when it finished. Because normally, like as you know, like Euros and stuff finish on Saturday, if not Sunday. But my only could think maybe if they couldn't. Well, I guess they own the venue, but I guess if they didn't have access to the venue, they couldn't get maybe the equipment they rented, like the big marquee and stuff, if they had to take that for Monday or something, is the only thing I could kind of think about maybe. But if it was like an IFMAR choice, it seems a bit of a weird one.
yeah, yeah. But either way, track got reversed. Practice went on Saturday, and we had the same freaking guy on top again. Um, like I do gotta say it. If you really think about it, there was only one time, one day of the event when Marcus wasn't on top, and it was the two-wheel drive finals day. Um, so incredibly well done for Marcus in that sense. Um, let me get you the two-wheel drive practice results. So obviously, as I said, Marcus topped that. Incredibly strong, like week for him overall. Um, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about him. But I think biggest change first day of four-wheel drive was X-Ray was on the pace from the get go. Um, and I think that was sort of the only real change we had. Everybody else was pretty much similar on the first day of practice, except X-Ray was actually fast.
Yeah, and then Coyote was there because you were complaining that Coyote wasn't in.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Okay, that is good that you brought that up. But yeah, that was I think. But that's because of Phend and Ronnefalk being Coyote drivers. So X-Ray and Coyote went hand in hand at this event. Um, Actually, I did sort of misrepresent Daniel a bit because Ongaro topped first 2 rounds, and then after that it was Kobevic. I think he topped practice round 3, practice round 4, even the first round of seeding. I think Daniel topped. Um, Marcus only went to the front at the last round of seeding, if I'm not totally wrong.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have to be honest, like, Kaerup's car, I think, looked the best throughout even from the start to the beginning, like, his car looked the best, to be honest, but it just seemed like he made just small bobbles and mistakes. I guess just when it mattered, which kind of caused that. And then Marcus, yeah, he kind of, like, he found something in that last seeding and he just went full steam ahead, and then he managed to get the top spot again. And then, yeah, Davide, I think Davide as well, if it wasn't for Marcus, Davide was probably, I think, the next one where he just he looked in tune with his car looked good, he was driving well. He was probably the next guy, I think, probably to win or do very, very well. Well, I think he still came second, so, like, I think he was definitely well. I can't remember who came third, but I'm sure I can look at the results. I'll look at the results in a second. I'm sure obviously when we get to the finals, we'll go over the results. But yeah, four-wheel was definitely a bit more like mixed, I guess you could say. Our guy, Ben Smith, in there in ninth,
Yeah.
flying the flag for the King. So, gotta give him some love there. And then it looks like Spencer down in 10. So I can't remember if Spencer was in the top heat or not in two-wheel for seeding. I actually have a feeling he wasn't. He was in
No,
the
he
B
wasn't.
seed.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, he
always
was in the
seems to. He's done it a few times, being in the B heat, but then gone to win the race.
Yeah.
So, so I almost feel like for him, it's probably not even too much of a bad thing if he's in the B heat. I'm sure for his own, I think for your own self, if you're in the A heat, you're you're on pace, but if you're in the B heat, you're probably lacking a little bit generally.
Yeah, yeah, I think like what you said about Rickman, he does it quite often that he starts out slow and then he picks up the pace towards the end. And yeah, that's what happened in the two-wheel drive because same with Champlin. He's obviously not here in the top heat. Rivkin now in the top heat wasn't in two-wheel drive. Was there any other big names not here now? Not that I can think of. Most of the top names did make it to the A sort in four-wheel drive. Um, Burak, okay, Burak. He was the one who sorted into the B heat. He was, I think, 11th after seeding, so not that far up. Um, and yeah, you said about Ongaro. He his sort of downfall in seeding was that he did not get 3 laps together. He was when you look at top 2 laps, he was second fastest. Well, top 3 laps, he was 7th. So he's 7th in seeding definitely doesn't show how good he actually was. Um, so yeah, that's something to mention. Other than that, I think everybody kind of seeded where they should have. Schimmel, I wrote him down as in my notes as a sort of a surprise. Really good seeding. Obviously going into qualifying did not have as good of a run. But in seeding, solid. I mean, I think he was second fastest in the first 3 seeding rounds, and then in the second seeding round, which was fast, that's when he dropped to 5th. But if he were done on points, I think he would be seeded 3rd, if I'm not wrong. So that pretty good for him.
Yeah. And also, I guess some other notables, I guess you could say that weren't in that top 10 was actually Brock, but he was 11th. Cole was 12th. Rendenek was 13th. And then Lachlan was 17th. And then Boda was actually 15th in the B heat. So, I mean, these are only after seeding too, because it doesn't show you
Yeah.
overalls after seeding. But this is the closest I could get. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of, I guess they were probably the guys you could say missing, but still there and thereabouts, I guess you could say. And I guess there's no TQ in practice, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I do wanna say is, especially from my standpoint as a viewer of the event, four-wheel drive practice is much less appealing to me than two-wheel drive practice, and not because of the classes necessarily, but because of the fact that the other one was sort of the first time they get on the track. So, I think there is something like, let's think of, like, the 8 scale world. You have 3 days of practice, which is insane to start with, but imagine if you had 3 days of practice and then there was 2 events at the same track. Like, most media showed up to the 8 scale worlds on last day of practice, so they basically just skipped the 2 first days. So, like, thinking of it that way, the hype for the practice is very low, especially when you already have run a whole race. It's sort of only the first few laps, and then after that, it's kind of like, okay, let's get on with the race. Um, there's something that popped into my head just thinking about it now, that kind of 4-wheel drive practice flew under the radar for me, at least, because it feels like it felt a bit weird. The off day, the 1 day off, does make it better, but it was still kind of like, okay, let's get on with this. We already did 2-wheel drive. At the event, obviously, it's not the same. It's similar, but it's not the same. It's more like, okay, now it's a clear slate, and let's get on with 4-wheel drive, a new class, and let's start from zero again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from with that, especially like when you talk about media and stuff. They only really come towards the end of practice, which I guess obviously by the end of practice, you kind of have more of a gauge to see who's going to be where. So it's actually kind of worthwhile, like let's say reporting on that. But even like yeah, but I guess from a driver's side, I think like 4-wheel drive is a new event. There's always it feels like there's a bit more drama because it's more fast and frantic, and there's always more going on because you're going faster. It's easier. You can push harder on this surface because obviously 4 wheels digging instead of two, so it feels like crashes, which definitely happened a lot more. So I kind of guess in some ways it can sometimes be a bit more like fast and frantic and more drama, just because there's more traction out there because the cars are digging in, and the 4-wheel cars tend to just kill the track as well. Like the track evolves way more with 4-wheel compared to 2-wheel. Like the jump place was starting to get beat, especially on those triple sections. And then like as we spoke earlier, some of the jumps had the same kick, so it was kind of a bit questionable if you could clear some jumps or not. Well, I guess only really that top left jump, but still. So in some ways, it was maybe it's a little bit more exciting, but I think it's maybe from a viewer's point, you see 2-wheel. I think some people kind of say that 2-wheel's the main class and then 4-wheel's kind of secondary, but obviously they're both treated as the same in terms of IFMAR or whatever. So I guess that's where I can see your point kind of coming in a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually a good point about the track. Um, it's kind of always the case when you're on 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, that the 4-wheel drives make the track much more rough. You drive it so much harder, than the track starts to break up. So in that sense, I think it's good that you would run 2-wheel drive first, just to get, because 2-wheel drive on a bumper track, that's difficult. That's really difficult to do. But moving on to qualifying now, let me bring up the results. We started off with Marcus TQing again, but Ongaro got Q2. So Ongaro got Q2. They traded, and then Marcus got Q3, Q4. Both of them had a bad round. With Phend coming up, you had sort of about 2 drivers realistically who could TQ, which was Marcus and Ongaro, and then sort of Phend, Ronnefalk, Champlin fighting for who's going to get to start third. Actually, Burak was kind of in the fight for starting third too, after day one. So a lot of things to go into play for Q5, but the TQ fight was kind of killed because of the fact that in Q5 the track was going to be more slippery. Ongaro needed a better time, and obviously that's not possible if the track's going to be more slippery. So Marcus ended up starting first, just like he did in Tool, taking the TQ. And Ongaro in second. He did not have a great Q5, Ongaro, but enough of that to keep himself in front of Phend. It was actually close. They became tied on points in the end. So top 3, Kaerup, Ongaro, Phend. I wrote here in my notes that he was, although he was tied on points with Ongaro, he was never really as fast as the top 2, in my opinion. Like, yes, he took that TQ in Q4. Yes, he was like close in pace, but when you sort of followed the rounds one by one, it was kind of that he was never really in the fight for the TQ overall, even though he got 1 round to his name. But I think Kaerup and Ongaro looked, to me at least, to be the class of the field all the way through qualifying.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there. I mean, Marcus, I don't know if it was just kind of vengeance on two-wheel and he just wanted to kind of make a statement, but he was pretty quick, like, especially in those first 3 rounds. Can't remember what happened in round 4, because I can see he basically got a 142. I don't actually know what happened there, but yeah, I think kind of basically everything else you said, I think I definitely agree with, to be fair. Like, I think a few notables to mention that are in the B, like Bartosz Ledusky, BQ. He actually had a really good first qualifier, and then IFMAR took those hopes and dreams away from him. I have a feeling it was just he used a battery that
Yes.
wasn't hacked, which,
Yes.
I mean, I think this is definitely something we should get onto later, because I think there is sometimes a bit of common sense that should be used from IFMAR. I'm not talking about Bartos, but yeah, we'll get back to that, I think. But yeah, Bartos, you know, I think he kind of proving again, he's not just good on carpet, he's good on dirt as well. Yeah, and then it looks like Spencer and Aiden in the B, which looks like they had a little bit of a rough one. Tom Vanderneck in 14th and Kuki in 15th, Clement in 16th. Brennan actually ended up being 7th in the B after a pretty good seeding. And then there's Ben Smith in 9, Una in 19th, and Christopher Sturdy in 20th. So there's actually a pretty good showing for him, I think.
Yeah, for people like, you know, it's funny looking at the B, because there's like some guys who you kind of think did really well, which is like Christopher Sturdy, and then like Hunter King, for example, in the C. And then there's a lot of those guys who would be really disappointed in how they did, like Davey Bata, 21st in the C. Same with Tommy Hall, 24th. Not really what he would like to have. And then, of course, like the big names, Horn and Rivkin in the B. And I'd even put Jona on that list. Like, he definitely would not want to be in the B main, as the world's like. I think he's that level of a driver that you should make the A, B, 2-drive, 4-drive, kind of always. Of course, this Worlds was much more rough on him than I thought it would be, compared to something like Hoodie, where he was much younger, much earlier on in his career, and he still made it clear in today dual drive. Yeah, it was weird. There was like 4. I marked here 4 guys who were not where they was supposed to be, in my opinion, and all of them drove AE. I know you are contractually obligated not to say anything bad about AE, which I'm always kidding about, but it was very weird that there was Marcus and Ongaro at the top, looking like the class of the field, and then these 4 other guys who you'd expect to be in the A final, who were actually all of them in the A final in dual drive, who were absolutely nowhere where they should be. It's a weird dynamic. I don't know if you have any sort of scoops from the pits that was there some mistakes on a setup? Did Ongaro and Kaerup do something different, or what really ended up happening? Because it's a really big disparity between these 2.
Yeah, I think, just being honest, some of the guys just struggled. I think from what I gathered, I know there was like I think some guys were struggling a little bit with the setup, but then I guess you could say that Davide and Marcus. I guess, I mean, those guys, they're so, especially Marcus and Davide, I think they're so talented. Like, you can see, I mean, obviously their cars, to be honest, to me, their cars looked really good towards the end, like, especially. So I don't know if maybe like the Europeans, like, we tend to do different things to what the Americans do. So I don't know if that was kind of part of it, because a lot of us, I feel like all the other manufacturers followed setups from the Aussies, and everyone kind of changed to what they felt was better for them. So I think that was kind of just people going different directions and trying to suit driving styles and what people are used to. So I think that was kind of was kind of it, really, more than anything.
Yeah, that does make sense. I have a theory which I want to talk about in the end, um, but yeah, I do think like thinking realistically, I think it's sometimes it just happens to be like that. Um, yeah, other names we haven't yet discussed, Ronnefalk. Um, he was there or thereabouts all the way through qualifying, but just like did never have like that one round to put him up there. So, for example, Q1, he was just a few seconds off of TQ, finished fourth. Q4, he was 2/10 off of Phend and finished second. Q5, he was just a few tenths off of third. Actually, sorry, just a few tenths off of second. So I think in a different universe, David would have started that main in second. He had the shot to do that. He had the shot to be in front of Phend, definitely, but just never really came together for him. Um, then looking at sort of the other names here, Champlin, again warming up towards the end, got a second in Q5. Burak was kind of the opposite. He slowed down a bit towards the end. Um, but I think he's the only driver. I think Ongaro and Burak are the only two drivers in the main who finished in the top 10 every round. So in a sense, that's like really impressive when you think about it. But Burak obviously starting sixth. Kobevic, second best Schumacher, is still in front of Orlowski. There or thereabouts again, all the way through qualifying. Lemieux in eighth, really good showing for him. Um, I think altogether thinking about it, I think that's you're gonna be happy about it. He was only one round outside of the top 10. Um, an American putting himself in the main. There's only four when you think about it. It's quite impressive. Um, and then yeah, first they main for him at the Worlds. It's a good result. Orlowski ninth. I I think that's again disappointing. And I think here is where the aggressive what we talk about him not being aggressive enough for off road these days. Here's where it really showed, I think, full drive. Because you really needed to be aggressive on this type of track to be fast. And that's what I think a lot of people were saying that you had to be really aggressive, um which helped some, hurt other. I think Burak was one to benefit from that because he is notoriously aggressive. Um and then Cole Tollard. This Cole I think he ran Associated way back in the day, moved to TLR, and now is with Schumacher. He's one of those guys that I think a lot of people sort of forgot existed. Because he was never really like a top two, top three name in America, but he was like a top seven name in America. Um, but he's always been sort of good enough to be around there. And I think this Worlds was a really good showing for him. I think it's making it to this main, as we said, in front of, Rivkin in 12th, Horn in 13th, Reneknecht in 14th, um, and a lot of these other like Bata in 21st as we went through. This is a really good result for Cole. Um, so yeah, a big shout out to him. I think Chase and Cole were both those names that this is a really big result, a really big well done to both of them. Um, so that's kind of all of the drivers in top 10. Let me know if I missed something, Will. One thing I do want to hear about is how was the sort of atmosphere in the pits after Burak took that second place in Q1? Because I think most people would have been really surprised by that. At least I was.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think a lot of people were surprised too with Burak coming second in that. What was it the just double checking? Yeah, Q1, and then he got
Q1.
fifth in the next one and sixth in the next one. Like he didn't. His lowest score was a ninth, so he was very consistent, which you kind of have to give to him. So I think a lot of people. So I definitely think before this year, like Burak, he's a very good driver, but I don't think you would have traditionally expect him to be in the A finals, like at world level. But I think now, at least for 10 scale, I think now for sure, like, you know, he won EOS this year. He was very good at the Euros as well in four wheel, and now he's obviously proved it again here at a world stage at a track admittedly he hadn't been to as well. So I think, you know, a lot of eyes were locked onto that Mugen. So I think like kind of come back to the car, you know, I think like although like recent, you know, we kind of said it looks maybe a little bit basic, it's obviously performing really well on track, but maybe like for the next generation car, maybe they'll look to bling up a little bit, you know, give it the make it look as good as it performs on track kind of thing.
Yeah, it's you know, it's not only a speed show; it's a beauty show too. You know, you gotta look the part. No, but really well done to Burak. I guess that kind of wraps up qualifying for the four-wheel drive segment. I do want to go through sort of the brands and nationalities. So 4 Americans, 6 Europeans. Europeans win again. And although Burak is flying Turkish flag, he lives in Germany and he's born in Germany. If I'm not totally mistaken, that's what I've understood. And Turkey is half Europe, half Asia. So um, if you really wanted to, you could give Asia another one, but I think no, I don't think that's true. Um, 4 Schumachers in the main, 2 Associated, 3 X-Ray, 1 Mugen. Um, really good show for Schumacher. That being said, though, they're sort of on the bottom side of the main, which is weird dynamic that the most cars Schumacher's the bottom, and then the least cars Associated to Mugen, they're really at the top. 5 Hobbywing, 1 LRP, 1 L-SRAM, and 3 Coyote. So Coyote really came through in four-wheel drive. Really good. Well, I don't want to say like a good result for them, but I think this was a decent result for them. This is kind of what you expect them to have. Hobbywing really looking good in both classes, to be honest. An LRP getting a guy in both mains, still after all these years. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, I think that's it, at least from me for qualifying. Did you have anything to add before we move into the mains, the sort of big show?
I think to be fair, let's get straight into it. I think with the mains, let's just go. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So, um, I think it's weird to say this because obviously in four-wheel drive as well, the finals were won in A1, A2, but and in two-wheel drive there's a lot of action. But I actually think four-wheel drive mains were sort of more exciting to watch. Um, and I think that's because like there was actual racing between these guys. Like Ongaro made it past Marcus on multiple occasions, and Marcus should have always just managed to come back by. Um, I do think it hurt the racing a little bit that it was basically 2 Associated guys followed by 2 X-Ray guys. So the only driver who was kind of brave enough to make anything, or should have been brave enough to make anything, was sort of Phend. But he drove very safe, I feel. So Ongaro definitely doesn't want to take out his teammate. Ronnefalk shouldn't want to take out his teammate, but it kind of happened accidentally. Um, so I think that's the only thing that hurt the racing a bit. Because let's put it this way: if it was Ongaro on top and Ronnefalk in second, I would bet my left ball that there would have been more action. Because first of all, it's like brand versus brand, no teammates, no nothing. These two are really racing for pride, and Ronnefalk is a much more aggressive in terms of trying to make moves than a lot of these other guys. He's not aggressive in the sense that he takes people out, but he's more aggressive in the sense that he's trying to find spaces where to make moves. Whereas I think Phend and Ongaro, they kind of they was Ongaro made moves, tried to make moves, but they were a bit too satisfied, with following. I think that's sort of the only way I would put it. But yeah, I think even all of that jibber jabber being said, I think the mains were exciting. I did like watching them.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I thought, more of a freight train as well. And I think what you said actually makes a lot of sense because, like, obviously, Marcus and Davide, because they're teammates, I'm sure they obviously definitely don't want to take each other out. And I think Dakota was in third. I think truthfully, I don't know if Dakota had the pace to win, even in those finals. It didn't really seem like he had he had a chance to kind of make anything happen, in my opinion. And then, and then obviously David Ronnefalk was behind him as well. So I guess those two obviously didn't want to hinder anything because third was where they were, unless they could have made something else. So, but it was, I think it was a bit of a freight train. I think Marcus again looked really nervous, but I think just he kind of just took that like anger, vengeance from two wheel and kind of applied it to four wheel. I think he did really well to really drive, and win both A1 and A2. And it was definitely a moment seeing him win that for sure.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say though, that I just realized is, he didn't really pull away. It's kind of weird because we're used to, like, when Marcus wins, he pulls away. That's kind of what he did at the e-buggy worlds. But again, he didn't pull away in full drive. But he was much more. I think he just looked so much more comfortable on the four drive, um, than he did on the two-wheel drive in the mains. Which, like, he didn't really have to pull away. But it's still a bit weird. It's a very different style of winning that we've seen from him at this event, I think. Um, when he starts up front. Um, yeah. So top three: Kaerup, Ongaro, Phend. Um, Phend did have quite a tough A1, and that resulted from him coming together with a Ronnefalk, which dropped him really back. He finished sixth in A1. Um, A2 he recovered to fourth. Still should have been, finishing second. Oh, sorry, third, because he's starting third. But Burak was the one actually who made his way up. Really impressive mains for Burak. Um, fourth in A1, third in A2. A3 was tough for him, but he kind of locked in that fourth place finish with that good run in A1 and A2. And when you look at his lap times, he was the fastest guy on track at times. Like, even like if you look at his top 5 fastest laps, I think he was matching like Marcus and Ongaro, who was the fastest. Um, so really impressive mains. I mean, Burak has always been sort of a mains driver. Um, but still, I was impressed because that speed, like, if he had started a few places more forwards, I think he could have really had a shot. I mean, he already now had a shot at the podium, but I think he would have had a really, really good shot to be on that podium. And sort of with Burak doing so well, that meant Ronnefalk dropped back to fifth. Um, but yeah, I think Burak was definitely one who impressed me the most outside of the top three. Um, inside of the top three, as I said, I think Kaerup was more impressive than he was in four-wheel drive, but I do think that it was a real fight. Like, even if I said that they was holding back and whatnot, it was a real fight. Ongara put Marcus in, but Marcus just handled it really well. Um, Kind of reminds me of that e-buggy world's practice final. Sort of simply similar sort of style of those two going at each other. And I wrote it down in my notes like this with Phend, that in this scenario he kind of settled for third. Like, when we was discussing this Ronnefalk and Phend coming together, Keenan was kind of like, well, Ronnefalk had to get him out of the way because Phend wasn't like putting on a charge, like he was fast enough. And I disagree because he was just following the guys. But in a one way, I do agree that Phend should have tried more, to try to go past, try to do something. But he was just kind of waiting and not even waiting close enough. So that's why I wrote down that Phend kind of settled for third. It's not like he had to settle; he just settled himself. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes a lot of sense. Because I was just thinking now, like generally, I think Phend is a pretty clean driver. He's not generally known for, at least as far as I'm aware, like he's not like generally taking people out. So I don't know if, yeah, I think it was kind of, I think part of it was that, and I think just part of it, I just think just Davide and Marcus was just a little bit quicker, in my honest opinion. That's what it seemed like to me, at least. But I mean, but I think like considering the result he had in 2-wheel, I think 4-wheel, to be on the podium, I believe that's his second world podium now, isn't it? Because he can't remember where he finished in 2019. I think he finished second, didn't he? So I guess it's also a good thing to show for him that Ekpe is also kind of been pretty solid for him after the switch from TLR as well, which I guess is a point as well.
Yeah. I was just digging up the instant, which we'll go to later on. Before we do that, let's sort of wrap up the going through the sort of top 10. Kobevic, best Schumacher. Champlin qualified the best out of these, but just didn't have a good time over the mains. Like just did not have a single good main. Kobevic did really well, and especially that A3 really helped him up. Orlowski again in 7th. I mean, yeah, it's just same kind of like he was in tour drive and in qualifying. Like he's just not close enough to the top to make big moves. Lemieux dropped down to 10th, and Tollard was 9th. As I said, Champlin in 8th. I think the last 3 in any A main is kind of like it doesn't really matter if you finish 8th or 10th, in my opinion, if you're at the World's A main. But one thing I think to take away from the Schumacher internal dynamics is I think this is the first event in a long, long time that Orlowski was not overall the best Schumacher driver. Like if you really think about it, like Orlowski's kind of been the number one. Like there's been times when somebody beats him, but it's kind of like if Kovacic has good 4-wheel drive, Orlowski's just behind him, and then in 2-wheel drive, Orlowski beats him by a mile, or the other way around if it has been someone else. But this was the first time where he did not finish as the top Schumacher in either class. I think that's a big switch in dynamic if you think about it. Then I think a big switch for Orlowski too. I think it takes quite a bit of pressure off of him in a sense that like Schumacher can still win without him. Schumacher can do well without him. And I think that kind of eases off a lot of the pressure from the other people at Schumacher that okay, we actually have a team now. It's not like we're relying on this one guy. It's kind of more like Associated has always been, which is like if Kaerup doesn't win, Ongaro or Rivkin wins. That kind of scenario they've had for many, many years. Or like in 2015, if Cavalieri does not do well, we have Rivkin, and if Craig doesn't do well, we have Jona or someone else, and yeah, that's just kind of a big takeaway I think for Schumacher and for Michael is that he necessarily doesn't like if he hadn't showed up to this race, Schumacher would have still looked good, which is something that 5 years ago never would have happened, I think.
I actually think that's a really good point. I know, like, for sure, obviously, like, anyone in that top 10, Michael wanted to win as bad as anyone else, but I think that's actually a good point that now you mentioned, like, Schumacher there, 6th to 9th was all just, Schumacher, and obviously there was 2 so it's kinda for sure, like, in the last 2, 3 years, like, it seems like they wanted to expand in America, and it's kind of paying off. Like, for sure,
Yeah.
like, obviously Brock and Cole were in there, and then Daniel's kind of being a new recruit. I say new, he's been Schumacher now for a little while, and obviously Michael's been there for a long, long time. So I think it's like, because I know, I know Schumacher generally don't like to spend the most money, but I think I've kind of seen that No, I don't just mean that in terms of drivers. I mean in terms of everything they do. Like I can see they're investing a lot more, and it's clearly paying off. So it's kind of good to see Schumacher, because it's weird. Because I remember when I used to drive their stuff almost 10 years ago now, they would they were very good in UK and Europe, but not really anywhere else. But now they're probably one of the better brands out there for sure.
Yeah, it's a big change, I think, and I think especially for Michael, because now it's kind of like it's a different mindset going into the event. It's kind of the same as Ongaro, when he went to 2019 Worlds. Ongaro just went there to have fun. Like if he finishes high up, whatever, like it's this is a filler up class for him, and he's not the number one name. Nobody's expecting anything of him. So when you go to an event, always with that mindset that you're only there to race for yourself, and like this is not gonna hurt your paycheck or your career in any way if you do well or bad. Sometimes it really pays off, and like Ongaro did, he won the worlds in 2024, 2023. And I think for Morlowski, I think he's gonna be sort of transferring more into that type of role now. That yes, when he goes to a touring car race, if he doesn't win, it's bad. That's his class. That's if he doesn't win, he gets mad and like he can be disappointed and so on. But in 10 scale, they have a team full of guys, So if he doesn't have a good week, then he doesn't have a good week, And like for Ongaro, if he doesn't win a world championship or doesn't make the A final in a world championship in 10 scale, whatever, he races 2 races a year for 10 scale, even less sometimes. So that type of pressure actually, or like that type of sort of ease of pressure, it could actually lead to better results in the next like following years for Orlowski, because it's not like he has so much pressure behind him. Like all those times we've said that, oh well, Michal's making mistakes, and like that Euros in Belgium which he lost, that was 100% pressure. That was just like carrying the whole team in your shoulders, winning the world's first two-wheel drive European Championship for himself and for Schumacher in a long time, and he sort of made that silly mistake in the last final and did end up losing that title in a tiebreak. All of that pressure from here on out, if it's not totally off, at least it's very largely taken off, because you can see, okay, I'm just one of the guys here. And then when I go to race touring cars, that's my class. Like that's the one I'm carrying this team, and I'm the best at the world at. Like if you look at his past races, he's been pretty good. So yeah, I think a big switch for him, and I think it's gonna be good. Like all those talks about being burnt out and whatnot, that's like all of that is gonna be helping you in solving the burnout and so on. So a big thing for him. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I was thinking we could move on to the Ronnefalk Phend incident. Did you
Yeah,
have something
I'm
you wanted
happy to move on.
Yeah. All right. So let's do that. I will remove this from screen, and I will be bringing up you guys the incident, as we say.
The
Um,
incident.
incident. If any of you guys know any F1 memes, you're gonna know that one. So A1, Kaerup is leading, Ongaro second, Phend is sort of following the pair, and we head into the front straight. Ronnefalk is really putting pressure on Phend already. Phend sort of closes in on Ongaro. Ronnefalk sees, oh, there's a little bit of space. Let me take some of that. So let's go through it again. Boop, and just
I
pushes
didn't
Phend
even see that, to be honest. I
off
didn't even
the
see
track.
that.
So let's rewind a little bit. We posted this on our Facebook as well, to at least I think I did. So obviously, wheel to wheel contact, fair racing, no penalty needed whatsoever. So totally fine in terms of rules and so on. But these two are teammates. Phend, it's not like there's anything he can do differently in that scenario relative to like putting pressure on Ongaro because he was there. But Ronnefalk clearly sees that, hey, my time, my time to try. And no mercy whatsoever. I don't know. I mean, if I was okay, Keenan again disagreed with me on this one. He said that Hoodie wants to win races, so like he would not really care if that's what they had to do to win the race. If like Fend wasn't getting it done, then Ronnefalk has to go get it done. But I think
But
like
then, but how far
like
into A1 was that
realistically,
though?
you have two. There was 2 laps to go.
Okay.
So after that, there were 2 laps, and I don't know. My take on this is that that's a bit too far for a teammate you want to be friends with. Is it too far for the sort of Europe versus America team battle? Maybe not. Maybe that's what you should have in a sense. But I don't know. If I was Fend, I would be like, "What the fuck?" And if I was Hoodie, I would be like, "Did you have to do that?" Like that way. Because Ronnefalk clearly also pushed him wide. So it wasn't only that there was space and he went for it and it was clean. He he knew it would be tight, and he put on some extra throttle and pushed him wide there to to sort of lock in the pass. So I don't know. My take on this is kind of like I don't think you want that type of driving between teammates. Like if you are a team leader, thinking about it like that way.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Fend, I also probably would have said a few words on the driver's stand. But I mean, it's hard to kind of say, kind of from Ronnefalk's perspective, like how he could defend it, but because it kind of looks like he kind of like there was space for him to go on the inside, and he kind of just kept going. But I mean, the only thing I could think was I know that corner there was quite a nasty bump, and the guys were generally catching it and getting a little bit offline, but it didn't look like Ronnefalk that was the case. So I definitely think in terms of two drivers, that's definitely not what you wanted. And I still think there are 2 laps to go, anything can happen. Like as you know, as a racer as well, like and anything could happen until the last corner. So, but I don't know if I know in the spur of the moment, these guys just want to win, and if they see an opportunity, they're just gonna chance it. I still think none of this is intentional, but I just think it was like I think some of these guys they just want it so bad. Just sometimes they make a move which probably is a little bit too far and wasn't meant to be, sort of thing.
It's I don't really know. Like, of course, from the viewers perspective, this is what you want. Like having big fights between these guys. Um, but like from the perspective of like a team owner or like a team boss or a team manager or whatever, um, I don't know. I think you kind of want to have a bit more respect for your teammates. Um, but I think this is good for the future though, because I think there will be a Fend is a very down to earth guy. He's not very emotional in a lot of these things. He doesn't get frustrated. It's very rare when we see him frustrated. So I don't think it's gonna be like a rivalry per se, but I don't know. I think there's gonna be a little bit more sort of caution in the back of the head when they're racing each other. And like I think it gives a bit more room to take more risks when there's this kind of history behind. And obviously, there were situations where Ongaro tried to put on moves on Kaerup, but then again, that's for the win. It's very different. And here's the sort of, I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize that went down. But A2, it was actually not that far away from going to A3. Like um, it was a fight to the last lap. So it wasn't something that just kind of was like, okay, Kara run away with this. Let me play it out. So Ongaro does that big jump and goes to the outside, and Kaerup gets him back. But like if you think about it, let me put it in slow motion so you guys can see a bit more clearly. But there is definitely like a reality here where Marcus touches the curb a bit too much, or Ongaro holds it a bit tighter, and that Ongaro gets by. It didn't happen. Marcus held firm and came away with the win. But I don't know. I saw this as a really big moment. Obviously, it didn't end up happening as a pass, but to me, that this is quite a big, you know, big moment in terms of the world championship. And if this had happened, if he had been able to hold the position, this would have been one of the biggest passes in history. Like if you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it was kind of coming back to what I said to you earlier. Like that triple is so easy to land and go wide, which is actually what happened. So I almost kind of feel, well, to be fair, there wasn't really a gap, even if Davide landed on the inside, because Marcus actually, to be fair, got it bang on that corner. But that was kind of like one thing there, like that triple where it made it a bit more exciting because you could land and then go wide and so on. But like, yeah, I mean, Davide, I think Davide definitely did everything he could, like, to try beat Marcus there, even on that last lap. So, I mean, he drove really well, and I bet he's can imagine pretty gutted because I think he was definitely the next guy. I think in terms of consistency, he was definitely the guy because I think Marcus just had pace and he was driving the heart out of his car in every single run. But I think Davide just looked more comfortable, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, obviously those two. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
yeah. No, I think you're actually on point there. That because I was thinking watching those mains that had Davide started out front, I feel he would have actually ended up winning that. I Like, it's hard to say. I think either way they started, I think either one could have won. But I think Davide looked a bit more comfortable than Marcus in the mains, in a sense. It could just be that Marcus was driving safe, trying to make sure he doesn't make a mistake. So usually when you do that, your driving becomes more sort of point and shoot and it doesn't look as flowing. So that could be a big part of that. So why I thought that. But um I don't know. I think Davide looked strong. It was a very big contender for going back to back in four-wheel drive. But obviously Marcus ended up coming through. Um, Sort of two in Davide versus Marcus. Obviously in E-Bug Heroes, it was the same two who was fighting a lot with each other, and now again, and Marcus, he's looking good. He's looking really good, and I think that's kind of the only thing I think bumps Davide out. That Marcus took the e-buggy, and then now he took 10 scale as well. I think if they switch it around, that Marcus took e-buggy and Ongaro 10 scale, or the other way around, I think then that would be quite sort of equally balanced. But I think there's a bit more, like power now in Marcus's hands in terms of the A team dynamics. Not that he gets to do anything with it, but I mean like just in sort of the racers, internal dynamic, street cred, what you call it. There's a bit more
Street.
intra team street cred for Marcus right now. or aura. That's what the kids say. That's a negative aura for Ongaro now. But no, I think these two are really gems that Associate is kind of having in their own yard. Phend and Ronnefalk, yes, they're good, but I think Ongaro and Kaerup really were the best two drivers. Not only did they have like the package, but I think they were also the best two drivers.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right, and I definitely think those two at the moment are definitely like one of the two guys where they're always like consistently there and thereabouts. I mean, Marcus. I think Marcus always like when he has his ballistic pace, he has his ballistic pace, and I think Davide, he's kind of the same, but he's always very, very consistent. Pardon me, like that's the main thing I noticed with Davide. I guess the only guess for him, he wasn't as strong in two wheel, but I guess anything with four wheels, we've always seen him really excel, which is always good to see.
Yeah. So that's your top three there. As we said, Phend in third, X-Ray sort of making at least some sort of good things to remember with the world's podium, but this was I think yeah, we've said it many times, but I think Marcus and Ongaro were class of the field that day. So congrats to these guys. Kaerup now 2-time world champion. Still a few more to catch up to Davide with 4. But if he keeps up this pace, it's not going to be long when these two are equally matched. 35th world championship for AE as well. Sorry, 34th? Can't remember now. Either one. 34th.
Yeah, I think it's 35. Is it
35?
Yeah, I think it's 34. Let me go on the. Let me
Yeah,
look on the Facebook page. I'll be able to tell you very quickly.
I did write it up on our.
No, it
Facebook.
is 35. Yeah, it is 35.
Okay, so yeah, that's a lot. That's a big number. I don't think that's bigger than we thought a few years back when they had 27, like just a few years ago. So they've been racking those up pretty quickly recently. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of I think that's kind of it for four-wheel drive, and we kind of can move into takeaways from the event. I know you had some complaints about IFMAR and so on. And then we obviously have our winners and losers. We're gonna go quickly as well, but yeah. Do you have anything more to add to the four-wheel drive portion itself?
No, I think four wheel was really exciting, and I think Marcus did really well to kind of bounce back from two wheel and kind of use that his result from two wheel to fuel four wheel. And I think he drove really well. And I think Schumacher, like it was good to see a bit more of a mix of brands in there. And obviously, I know Burak, he was really upset to not have a higher result, but I also think that was a really, really strong result for him. So it'll be good to see maybe the next Worlds and next events with the four wheel where he'll sort of handle out. And I think, X-Ray were back up there again, which was good. And then obviously Schumacher kind of showing their new platform, is definitely a contender as well. So I think it's a bright future for all of them, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So should we do winners and losers? And then sort of wrap up the event itself with some sort of there are some good things that we wanna take out, and then there are some not so good things that we have to point out, unfortunately. But yeah, let's go ahead with winners and losers provided by Klinik RC and Racetech. Thank you to Klinik RC and Racetech USA for your long-time support. I think from pretty early on, from the podcast's history. So thank you to those guys for staying on. So winners and losers. We'll start off with brands. I've written down a few. I think a definite winner is Schumacher. Tool Drive World Championship. Um, they had most guys in the most drivers in the main in full drive. Second most drivers in the main in tool drive. Incredibly good. Um, then I have J Concepts here. Every driver in the main, I'm pretty sure every driver in the main ran a J Concepts body. Like they just pretty much have a monopoly on 10 scale, everything right now. Even with hot race
I think
coming into the
everyone
scene.
also ran that. I think also everyone ran the popular tire. I think it was the rips, the J Concept rips,
Yes,
which was like a 4 rib. So everyone was running that tire as well in 2-wheel.
that's true. That's a very good point. So yeah, two-wheel tire and body shell, and I think wings pretty much too. Hot Race tries to make sort of inroads to the scene, but I mean, even at, like this Worlds, they were really nowhere to be seen realistically. So J Concept's kind of a monopoly position in 10 scale. Hobby Wing in both classes, the most used electronics. Um, with that EAM, I think Gens Ace was what Brock used, but Marcus was on EAM batteries and so on. A smaller company, um, and having really good success. So I think that's a definite winner. Mugen, um, yeah, I think a solid weekend. They brought one guy to the race who's not really even a 10 scale driver and puts it up for fourth in full drive. And yes, in BMA and tool drive, but I think still a solid win for them. And then the last winner, I have Team Associated. And yeah, two guys in the podium in both classes, one more world championship to you, double win in full drive. Yes, do I think that the sort of Rivkin and Horn and those guys not making the main in full drive looks bad? It does. I do think it looks bad. But still, like if you finish first and second, you really can't say there's anything wrong with that. And then 7 cars in the main for tool drive. Come on, like domination at its best. I think Associated, um, even better than Schumacher in the end, if you think about it. But that's to be expected because I think Schumacher is coming from quite a bit of um they have caught up, even though they still, I think, they don't win as big as Associated. I think they have caught up the Associated quite a bit. Um, any more winners in your books, Will?
I think in terms of brands, honestly, I think that's a pretty good lineup right there. To be fair with you, I don't think there's anything I really want to. I don't think there's anything to my head I could add. To be fair,
Yeah. So that allows me to move to losers. I'm gonna start with some easy ones. S-Works, Yokomo, TLR. S-Works didn't even go. Yokomo had like a few guys who are pretty local. And TLR, well, Hunter King did well, but come on, like, like this branch just disappeared off the face of the earth. So I think those three are pretty easy. Um, I also have X-Ray because not making the tool drive main with that lineup, um, even with a podium and four-wheel drive, you should be sort of fighting for the win, like at least, you know, much more closer to the fighting for the win in four-wheel drive. So I think even in both classes, like four-wheel drive, I think was medium at worst. But two-wheel drive was just so bad that I think X-Ray has to come out as a loser. And another one is Coyote because um, it's like sure they got 3 guys in the main in four-wheel drive, but this brand came in with such a big like force, and then they've kind of like to be honest, like they're really the only way you can see them is because they're main sponsor of everything. So it's kind of like they throw money at everything, but the results necessarily they haven't come yet.
But I don't know, do they have many guys? Do they have many guys at this Worlds? Because I know they have obviously Dakota and Ronnefalk. I don't know. Do they have anyone other than Mikhail using the batteries? Is there anyone else that's actually is in Coyote? Do we know?
Well, that is a good point that they really haven't gotten that many guys in terms of 10 scale. Neumann is obviously running for them, but he didn't go. I think Rineknet is running Coyote, and there was someone else who I think was running Coyote who sort of is a top level driver in the US.
Does Cole? I think Cole runs because he
Yeah,
made the
Cole
main, didn't
runs.
he?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you can make a point that Coyote is a medium. Um, but do still think like the the hype and the results, they're not really like level. That's kind of how I felt recently. Because the beginning of the year, everyone was kind of like, okay, Coyote is like the biggest thing and the best thing, and so on. So that's kind of why I feel like they in that sense disappointed a little. But then like maybe it's like they want to put more money into different style of marketing, which is sponsoring live streams, sponsoring the race, which I don't know, from business strategy could be good, could be better even, I think. So, but result wise, it's still like if you think if you want to market yourself as like the best thing ever to drop onto the scene, it's a like yeah, in that sense, it's a bit of a letdown in my opinion. Um, do you have any more losers? I don't. I think we've covered quite a bit of the brands. I guess you could put in like
I think in
Proline and Hot Race, but yeah, like I don't think those like matter that much in the context.
yeah, I don't think. I mean, Heart Race. I don't think. I was surprised because I know if like Lens Bodies, they make a bunch of bodies, but so I wasn't sure why they weren't really a thing because I thought they had some at the warm up, but I think I don't know if they had any availability at the Worlds, which is a bit weird. So I don't know if they're still making because I haven't really heard much from them. They're still doing bodies and 10th scale or not.
I think they are, but it's just weird because none of their guys run them. Like they run it sometimes, but not like all the time, which is weird. So it's a weird dynamic in my opinion.
Huh, it's a weird one.
Yeah. I put Kyosho in medium because like they kind of they did better than Yokomo and S-Works and DLR in a lot of ways. So they're kind of like the best of the non-existent brands, but I don't know if they even deserve to be in medium. To be honest, they're like a medium to loser category to me. I don't think there's any other mediums. There's like a bunch of different like electronics manufacturers that maybe could go in a winner or medium. Maybe R1 could be a winner because they had a world's podium with Davey. But yeah, I think that at least for me kind of covers the brand section.
Yeah, I think we're good to go on to the drivers. To be fair,
Yeah, so drivers obviously Kaerup. Then I have Kubovic. Um, I'd say Ongaro would be there too. Um, Kilic, Borak, he would be there. Um, Davey,
I
I
think we
think Davey has to be
obviously
there.
Brock. Yeah, I think obviously
Brock,
Brock needs to.
yeah.
Guess you could say.
Um, yeah. I don't know. Uh, maybe you could put like Chase Lemieux, and maybe you could put like Cole Toller there. But I think they're more like, well, I guess I would put Chase and Cole there, but it's a different type of winning, I think, for them. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's more winners. I think that's kind of it for the winners in terms of drivers. Um, then For losers, Orlowski, I
I
think.
almost feel like I almost feel like because he still made both mains. I don't know
Should
if
we
I
put him
count him
as
as a
medium?
loser. I'd say Schmedium. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think winners, but
Yeah.
Schmedium. I think I'd say because he's. I know now as owner, I think he basically hadn't made a world's main until I think since 2017. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, in
And I
two-wheel
think that's the
drive, he
first worlds. I
definitely.
think he did it. I think the first worlds he's done actually the double A final.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's true. So, in that sense, yeah, I do agree. It's a good. No, actually, 2015 he did both, but like
Ah,
still,
okay, yeah.
but still, like it's been a while since he's done both. Um, so I think, yeah, I think Medium is a fitting one for Orlowski, but definitely losers. I'd put Rivkin and Horn because Horn bottom of the A in two-wheel drive, not making the A in four-wheel drive. Rivkin, I guess you could say two-wheel drive went well, but I think he himself, and everybody in the sort of who follow RC was putting him as a winner favorite going in, or like fighting for the win going into the race. So him not making the A final in four-wheel drive and top 5 barely in two-wheel drive, I think that's this week he was a loser.
Yeah. I think he definitely wanted a bit more from the Worlds. I know he did a lot of practice and so did Rifkin. But it seemed like, especially in four-wheel, these guys seem to struggle a little bit. So I think I think it's fair, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm now kind of thinking where we put Phend and Ronnefalk, but to be honest, I really can't put either in the loser one because
I
they
feel
did
like
like
they'd have to do Schmedium because they proved in
Yeah,
four-wheel still.
yeah. Yeah, they proved themselves in four wheel, and also like Ronnefalk had that good Q5 in two wheel drive. He won the B med and was competitive. So I think driver wise, I think Ronnefalk and Fenn go into this medium category.
I
And
actually think there's one person we kind of forgot this whole time, which maybe is borderline the winner, but maybe Schmedium, and that's Clement Boda because he made his first World's A main here. He had some pretty good
I think
consistent
Boda,
qualifiers.
yeah, I think Boda is a winner. I think you have to put him as a winner. Um, I think someone like Jona, he's kind of like he's not necessarily a medium, but he's not really a winner either. He's kind of he did well, but nothing noteworthy in a sense. I think Kogi Kato is the same, but I think Boda finishing 6th is quite a good result, you know? So I think that deserves to be a winner, um, in that sense. So I think Boda is a winner, but then Koki and Jona is kind of like they're not medium because they did well, but they're not like winners either in a sense because they're at the bottom of the main. It's kind of like they're just quietly forgotten this result. You know, it's like it's a good result now, but from 5 years now, nobody really remembers it. Um, yeah, I think that wraps up our winners and losers. So share down in the comments what you guys think. Do you think we got someone wrong? Did you see someone was actually better or someone was actually worse? Um, let us know in the comments. Yeah, let's move forward. So we're gonna do the. I think let's do our sort of takeaways. This is we have really not done notes for this one, but there are things we kind of want to talk about, um, and a few of them. I don't like heat rotations. Um, I think that the dates and the timing was weird. I think counting 3 out of 5. Why? Why don't you count like 3 out of 6? Or why don't you count 2 out of 5 like at the Euros? I think 3 out of 5 is way too rough for 10 scale. Um, Definitely, if you have 5 rounds of qualifying, or let's say if you have less than 6 rounds of qualifying, do them all in one day. If you need to do more than one qualifying day, do more than one round on the second day. Yeah, I think I did not enjoy the format where there was just one round of qualifying in the second day. I did not enjoy 3 out of 5, and I definitely did not enjoy the heat rotations, because I think it's just it puts it puts too much change into sort of it's like an extra randomizer, like, at least when the slowest guys run first, the track is always similar, you know? Like, at Ebuggy Worlds, when they even split the top heat into 3, that's even worse because you have different conditions for top 3. But here, I think still it was not the positive thing at all. I think it was much more of a negative, the rotations. Um, Other than that, I'm pretty pleased. They even had announcing, apparently. That's what I heard. So they had announcing event. Everybody
Well,
said how good the club did it and so on. So I think those are really the only complaints I have right now.
yeah, actually, I heard a lot about the announcing. So in the end, they had RC Race Media doing the coverage, and they did a fantastic job. Actually got to work with them a little bit, so just got to say huge shout out to Tony and their team as well. But yeah, it seemed like, from what I understood, basically there normally should be a track commentator, and there wasn't. And I'm not I'm not sure if I'm correct here or not, but I don't know if that's something IFMAR supplies or the trackers supply. But actually, in the end, what actually worked out, and I actually think this actually worked out quite well, was the live stream commentator, which was Scotty and Mitch on the mic. And obviously, Scotty did amazing as usual. Mitch was ace as well. So another shoot. I want to just say a shout out to him because he was awesome. Like, at the same time, but they actually did it so what the people were listening to on the live stream was also like being presented to the track as well, which I actually kind of think was a good thing in the end. Because sometimes it seems like you have the track commentator and the live stream, and I think because they mixed it, it was actually pretty good. But I know there was a little bit of drama before the event on if RC Race Media was able to do it, but I think they managed to pull through themselves, which is really good to see. So, I mean, I don't know the whole story about that. It's probably not my right to say, but obviously they did a fantastic job as well. So I've got to say, RC Race Media was absolutely ace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think media was good. Not really anything to complain about it. Maybe they followed a bit too much the leader, but that's what JQ said, but I don't really care that much. Yeah. You had this one complaint about refereeing, and not necessarily on track refereeing, but like outside of the track refereeing, like technical inspection and so on. That's what I said after the e-bug Euros as well, that they say that rules are rules, but they're not the same for everyone. It's been an issue for a long time, and it's basically from the heads of one of two stubborn, you know, power greedy people who want to get their power trip. I think that's what it comes down to, but it seems like there's not an event where this doesn't happen. That's what it seems like.
I just think so. The main issue here, and it's obviously affected Bartos, and then it also affected one of our guys as well. But I think some of the rules, I think just I get that rules are rules, but I think at some point you've got to have common sense here because there was a situation here. I'll say two situations, and actually one of them personally happened to me in Arizona, and it's the same as, and I'll go into it. But at Bartos, he had a lipo that was unmarked, which he should have had marked, but it was an accident. I understand, but as far as I'm aware, if that battery's on the list and it passes the tech afterwards, then as far as I'm aware, I think they just should just accept it. I mean, you can't tell me that a battery, especially on dirt, having more power isn't actually going to help. 100%. Maybe on carpet, you could argue more power, having a more powerful battery, but on dirt, even if he had a special battery that had more power, that wouldn't help. I actually think it would do the opposite. So I think in a situation like this, they should have really looked at it and said, okay, as long as the battery's legal, okay, it was a mistake. It should have been teched, but if it was legal and fits within the requirements, maybe it should kind of be let go. I think the other issue, which I personally had an issue with in Arizona, was where like a battery, if it's slightly over like a 8.41 or whatever, you can't do that qualify that run or whatever. I think that's a stupid rule. Or like especially for 0.1 over. Like I know especially at other like race series, if you're 0.1 over, you normally you just rev your car and that's it. And then there's also the argument of the device measuring that battery. How can you prove that's true to voltage? Because all of us have our chargers and all 150 people there have never had an issue. And then all of a sudden, maybe just a charger or maybe their device points like, 0.1 over. I think there has to be a bit of common sense there that, just let the guys just, rev their car and get it down to 8.4. No one's going to TQ from their battery being 0.1. It's not stock. So I think there's got to be some rules I think that need to kind of be adjusted because these rules just kind of just ruin it sometimes. And it just really just there for no real apparent reason. So I think that was my rant on those kind of two rules and situations. I think just they really got to kind of look at the times and just kind of see that sometimes just let it go. They don't have to be so strict as in, okay, to be fair to the club, I will give it to them. They were very good with the rules to a point. Like they did tell everyone, listen, you got to do this by this point and we'll let you off now, but so on. But the battery stuff always seemed to kind of be for some reason, just that was always just, sorry, like that's the rule, so we can't do anything about it. So maybe that's something everyone needs to take a look at.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a sense, it's very silly that you would forget to mark your battery. That should be like if I was there like at the race, like I would when I put the battery in my car, I'd be like, hey, this doesn't have a mark. I should go mark it, in the Bartos case. Like I think in that sense, it's very like a silly mistake to do. But I do also think that when you take your car into tech, if you have an unmarked battery, why not just be like, hey, we can tech it here, and if you do this another time, then you'll get a penalty for it. But for this first one, we'll let you off because it was an honest mistake. And if the battery passes tech, you're fine to go. There's no reason why you couldn't do that, I think. But that's
That
not
was the
done.
thing as well, just thinking
get
about
to
it now. Yeah, but also just thought now, obviously the car got let onto the track. So it looks like it was also maybe just an oversight from the people teching the car. They didn't see the sticker on the battery. So like maybe is that also, no, 'cause I don't want to blame because everyone that did tech and stuff are volunteers. So I understand, really appreciate that time they took out of their life to do that well. But I think you also looking at it, then like if you look at it that way as well, then he got down to the track that they deemed it as safe to run. Could you argue that they said the car was fine to run, but it was only just when they re-teched it after the battery? Obviously, I guess you could argue they could have technically the person could have changed. Well, Bartos could have changed the battery and whatever, but like there would be no real reason to do that if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's the silliest thing. That's what happened to Boda in e-buggy worlds. That the battery was the car passed tech before the run, but didn't pass tech after the run because of the battery. Like I think that's just silly that can even happen in a sense. So I think that's something that they should sort of relook at. I do think like it's a silly mistake to do to not mark your battery. And if you do that, it's kind of on you. But at the same time, I do think it's like, why do we disqualify people because of this? Like it's not that serious of an issue. You're not gaining anything from it, and you really can't cheat because of that. And then the other issue with the voltage, I've complained about this since this became a thing. That basically, if you go into tech and your battery is over, even before your run, you're already disqualified. And
And the thing that's pretty stupid as well, that if they say you can go with the battery not in the car, and if it's then over voltage, then you can obviously go away, for example, rev it. But it's only if it's in the car, and I think that's just come on. Like, I think that needs to be changed. That needs to be looked into.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the silliest thing, that you can go into the tech at any point of the race and say, "Could you check my voltage?" And they can check your voltage, and they will tell you the amount that it is. But if you go into tech before the race and say, "I'm checking in for technical inspection," and then it's over, you get disqualified. So it's like basically what I've done recently when I've gone to these races, because I'm a fucking, person who likes to take a piss on things when they're silly, is I've went to tech inspection and said, "Hey, could you check my voltage?" And then they do it, and then I'm like, "Okay, sure, do the technical inspection now." Because it's so silly. And then all the tech people realize that what I'm doing, and they never even bother me about it afterwards. You know. But still, year after year, I've heard that there's people that get disqualified from this, and it's such a fucking silly rule. Like, it bothers me how dumb it is. That if you are, I think if you are 8.5, fuck yeah, disqualify that. That's like you've obviously changed the settings on your charger to do that. But if you're 8.41, who the fuck cares? That's kind of my take on it. So yeah, I think those two are like examples of, like, sometimes it's too much policing and then sometimes it's too little. Like, there are some things that pass through the eyes of these people, and then they're like, okay, it's fine, whatever. But then these things are like, let's disqualify this guy for this. But yeah,
Yep, I'm 100% with you on that.
yeah, I don't really have much other than that. I think one thing I do want to say about Associated is, like, they released a new platform. I think there's nothing to do with like the race or whatever, but now sort of more sort of overall Jita chapter of the event. That Associated released the 4-wheel drive now. They have this new 2-wheel drive, and they're pretty much the only brand on the market that has a significantly different geometry to the rest of the cars. Like, you have the narrow pivots on both 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. Everyone else is pretty much within a millimeter of each other in most measurements you could do. Everyone else is pretty much the same car, 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, except for Associated. And I think it's a bit silly in a lot of ways. And yes, 8 scale is the same and touring car is the same. But it's a bit like silly to think that, because everybody runs the same body shell. Everybody is really, really close in geometry. Everybody runs the same wing, front wing, same tires. But they're just manufactured by different people. So to me, it's a bit, I don't know. I think it's a more general issue in RC, um, than just 10 scale, but it's something that's kind of recently started to bother me a bit. That the innovation is kind of stagnant in a lot of ways, and that was kind of what we talked about with the Mugen. And then, like, Associated, they made that new 4-wheel drive, and they say, yes, it's very good. They finished first and second, but then 2 of their top Americans make into the B main. So, like, in a lot of ways, it's like also the innovation is punished in terms of results. So that's probably why it's not happening. But as a sort of a fan of the sport itself, it's really frustrating. You want to see new stuff. You want to see different things, and some cars being better at that, and some cars being better at that. But I think it's slowly withering away, and I think this world was kind of like Schumacher. They went from having a belt-driven car with different front end, like this angled servo and all that stuff that was very different to the others, to now having pretty much same as everybody else. Four-wheel drive. They have a shaft-driven car that looks like the B Max 4 from Yokomo, and everybody is really close to being the same on everything. So I don't know. It's a bit of a sad thing to see, because back in the day it was very different. Like every other car was very different to each other, and now everything is pretty similar at the end of the day. Luckily, though, there are still a big difference, as we see that X-Ray really suffered at this event. But then again, they suffered at the e-buggy worlds, where Orlowski and Kobevic, who is running their car, did not suffer. So it's much more about just setup than it is about the car itself, I think. Just something that popped into my mind. Um, and I think this world was like, I guess the reason why I'm having this idea at this worlds in specific is because I'm used to, in 8 scale, everybody has something new for the world. Everybody has something, wow, this is crazy, this is cool, and they have it at the worlds. But here it was kind of like, if somebody brought something new, it was just moving their car towards the direction of other cars. Like Schumacher, like basically now getting closer and closer to an AE front end. It looks different, but like in terms of like structure, it's very similar. Yeah. I don't really know what I was going after with this, but just an observation.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of got a point, but I think the other side of it, and there are like companies like like Nemo, Nosoya Gamma, which are they're kind of, I'm hearing like, for example, their two wheels low, so they're going to maybe make a four wheel. And that's maybe the same. There was like that. Oh well, I mean, I guess it was more of a passion project, but that Orb, it's not Orb, the MRO car, they kind
Yeah.
of had to lay down shocks. It's kind of interesting to see if people will go in that direction. Because obviously X-Ray's been, leading the market for so long in four wheel. It'll be interesting to see what kind of the next kind of level will be. So I guess that's something kind of, if a manufacturer would ever go and like kind of take the balls and go in that direction, or if kind of maybe what we have is probably maybe the best for now.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. But I think in 8 scale, thanks to Joseph kind of now going into the direction of making something new, I think there'll be a lot more changes in 8 scale coming forwards in the next few years. Because that market is being pushed. I think it will take a little bit of time until MRO comes on board, and I think Willspeed also, they showcased their two-wheel drive design, which was crazy. Um, Something like that could change it. It automatics kind of like made that switch in touring cars happen. Because back in the day, every single touring car was the same. It was basically every touring car looked like the same exact thing. You just had different color anodizing on the parts. Then now, after automatics coming onto the scene, we had multiple years of big development changes, and still, even after years of development, all of the cars have like differences. The geometry is very same, but like there are differences in the way they reach that geometry. So I think it takes sort of a next step now with 10 scale. It's coming, I think, but yeah. Um, that's that for me. Do we have? I think with this, I'm ready to move these world championships behind me. It's now in the history. We don't need to worry about it anymore. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think we're kind of good to. I think I've I think I've kind of mentioned everything I needed to mention.
Yeah. All right. let's move to the last part of the podcast. We have a few more segments to go. We have the upcoming races segment. Um, this is sort of to shout out some races that are coming up in the following weeks, just to keep your eye out on the RC scene, on what you guys want to follow. And the upcoming races segment is brought to you by Sidewinder Fuels. So thank you, Sidewinder. Morgan Fuel has been collaborating with many of the world's top drivers for over 35 years. This has enabled us to test our fuels in many of the most challenging situations and take the development of competition fuels to the next level. The result is Sidewinder, the market's most powerful racing fuel. This fuel is track tested and proven by national and world champions, including Ryan Cavalieri, Ryan Mayfield, Greg Degani, Mark Pavidis, and many more, for example, Fi Long Yan. These drivers appreciate that Sidewinder is blended perfectly for the high performance needs of competitive racing. Don't let victory slip through your fingers. Purchase Sidewinder today. I absolutely love that "Don't let victory slip through your fingers" slogan. That's a really good one. Um, Thank you, Sidewinder, another long-time sponsor of the podcast. Um, so, upcoming races this weekend, we have two big races coming up. Team Associated Vintage Championships in Vegas. A big event, a big hype behind this. I believe it's only vintage cars, so people are just going there running RC10s. That's what I think. Um, Really cool to see what comes out of it. Um, Round 5 of the J Concept Indoor Nationals, and this is the final round of it. Double points in offer. I think there's still Schimmel and Brock maybe fighting for the title. Can't remember if there's someone else. So tune into that coverage done by Elite RC Productions in Hoosier Hobbyplex, Indiana. Then 7th to 10th of November, AMS, a big event, lots of Europeans coming over. Same weekend, from 5th to 9th of November, the SIGP San Parao International Grand Prix of the off-road sort. Big names went there last year. I think there's also going to be big names coming over there this year in Xiamen, China. And that's it for now. Do we know any other races? I do know there are some other races that I forgot to mention. We have the IFMAR Worlds of IC Truck, so Nitro 1/8 on road IFMAR Worlds. Still this year. We had some other big race I'm completely forgetting right now, but maybe it'll come to me at some point. But still a few good races to go. Still month and 2 months and a half in this year, and then we move into 2026. This one's gone quick. This one's gone quick. And then if you want to follow some racing, these are the ones to follow. All right. Let's let's move towards closing the show. Sort of gossip of the week, whatnot. Uh, Sort of topic. I think still much related to the worlds, um, but uh, still kind of unrelated to the world in some sense. Um, Gossip of the week is brought to you by Mayako. Thank you, Mayako, for your support. I don't have any ad reads or ads for you guys, but Mayako coming in with that low center of gravity geometry, proving to be really effective at the Worlds this year, with Pecco finishing 8th at e-buggy Worlds, and I think 10th at the Nitro Euros. So let's see how that develops for those guys in the future. So what I wanted to touch on before we go is I think this was in the plans already before the Worlds. So it's not necessarily something that was like, hey, let's do this after the Worlds was a success. But J Concept is coming out with a series called the Outdoor National Series. So obviously a tribute to the Indoor National Series, but in outdoors. So they've already announced a few races. I think I'm actually I'm not sure if the races in this picture are going to be part of the series, because we have a few tracks in Florida. I think I can't remember these two names, and then we have Thunder Alley in California, which would be crazy if it actually ended up going there for that scale. Um, I don't really know if what I think about this. I don't think it's like my initial thinking is that it's not going to be successful. But clearly there is an audience for this. It's got a very good like it was received very well from the audience, and people seemed excited about it. What's your take on like having an outdoor 10 scale brought back by your concept? Do you think it will actually come back? I don't think it's gonna happen, but what's your take on it?
Well, I was just looking at because I remember seeing this the other day, and I actually thought at first it was a 8 scale series, which is why. So from the tracks, I just didn't read into it. But now that I realized for 10 scale, I think to be honest, after now that I've been on an outdoor dirt track, I think it's unique for sure. And I just think because I guess the tire generally on tire air is pretty good. It's lower grip, I guess, and I guess you're dependent on the weather. But I can see it. I don't know if it'll be as popular as INS series just because they're mostly indoors. In fact, I think they are all indoors. So there's no
Yeah.
external factors. But I think, with only being 3 series, I think it'll be pretty good. I'll be curious to see how many top guys attend it, as I can imagine their schedules are so tight as it is. But I think, it's a good thing to have. I think I guess it'll kind of link to what we'll talk about next, but just whether like where the next worlds will be. Is this like something that will kind of benefit where we're going to be next? If it's going to be another outdoor track or so on, but I can't see an issue with it, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of places I'll get this wrong, but both on the east and west coast and central the states, like where they race still an outdoor dirt, especially in Florida. So I can't see it as a bad thing. I just don't know. It'll be good to see if they get good numbers. That's all.
Yeah. And you interpreted my announcement of this correctly, because I think it's very much linked to the next World Championships. Right now, I think if I had to guess, the next Worlds will be in China at the what was the name now? It was the venue they just held that big on-road race where Pekka went to a month ago. Um, they have a brand new facility with an indoor on-road track, an outdoor on-road track, and a covered dirt track. And this covered dirt track is like for 8 scale mostly, but um, obviously they can make it fit 10 scale. Same as they did in 2017. That was a different place, but they did that in 2017. I think this is the most likely venue it's gonna go to. It's gonna be real dirt. It's gonna be not indoors. It's gonna be covered, but not indoors. Um, and I don't know what they're gonna do to it. I suspect they will treat it somehow with the glue or with oil or something. But right now, at least from when they just got the track ready, I think it was untreated. So there's a chance we get another sort of hoodie 2019 style worlds. Um, Maybe even a little bit more, authentic off road, because you have that wind blowing in there, so it's not gonna get as dry as Hoodie Arena was, because that's what it looks like is basically just concrete in the shape of dirt. And then it gets really slippery because it starts to shine. So that's my number one guess. In Europe, I don't really see a club that would be able and willing to host a Worlds at this point, especially because it's very out of the blue. Because the announcement, they had basically 2 weeks to decide. Um, and then if it's USA, there are probably plenty of clubs who are willing to do it. But I think there's very, very few clubs who have sort of real off road, which is what the Americans want. So I think at the end of the day, like that's why I think it's going to China. but at least from what IFMAR says, it's totally open where it will go, which is interesting to me. And it's like, I don't know, what's your thoughts about this? Was this discussed at the Worlds between people? Because obviously, the news about this came as the event was, I think, just ended or about to end, and they have the AGM at the IFMAR Worlds, which means that they most likely had discussed this already then. So was there a lot of discussion about this at the event itself?
Towards the end, there was a little bit of discussion amongst the drivers and so on. Australia made it very clear they would be up for hosting it again, because I think how the rules
Yeah.
say that if there isn't one, it does fall back to the same club or whatever. And but don't get me wrong, Australia was an amazing Worlds, and I think they would be good for another Worlds. But I think, like anyone, obviously they would like to go somewhere new. I think that's the kind of the main thing. I think it's an absolute worst case, like for the sake of getting a Worlds going, I don't think it's the worst decision. But of course, I think we would like to see, the Worlds somewhere new. I've heard a lot about this China facility as well. It's basically funded by the government, so they're able to make something pretty damn good. And I could see China hosting a Worlds, to be fair, and I think it would be pretty good. I wonder what the attendance will be like, because I don't know if the area itself is very touristy. Because I know a lot of people came to Sydney because it was like a holiday destination at the same time. Like, I went for a holiday as well, but I don't know China. Nothing against the place. It's never really been on the top of my list for places to go for a holiday, at least. But so that's definitely a contender, I think. But I haven't heard much from them. I guess, like, you're pretty right about Europe. I guess the only place I could see would be maybe the Hoodie Arena hosting a Worlds again. But I think these guys, if they did it, they would really need to change the track fully for sure. But I think also, like, I guess they've already had a Euros and a Worlds, and I mean, maybe, to be fair, it's been so long, it wouldn't be a worse decision, I don't think, as long as they changed the track completely, I think, because it has been out for a while. And I think maybe, in my opinion, I think the track could be a little bit narrow because it is a little bit too big, but maybe that's just me saying that because I struggle with that track. But and then, like, obviously our UK guys are like, oh, let's get Robin Hood, and I would absolutely love to see. I mean, it'd be great for them, but if they did it on a dirt track, I think they have an amazing facility with the Astro track. But I think, and I know the UK guys are going to kill me for saying this, but I just think we would have so much local advantage. I don't know how people would feel about it is the main thing, because our Astro is so unique. So, and that's just me being honest, and I'm probably going to get kicked out of the country for saying that. But another idea we had was just like, I think these guys were thinking about putting new AstroTurf on their track. So basically taking all the Astro off and it's just dirt underneath, and just make a dirt track with that just for the Worlds, and then afterwards put the new Astro on. But our weather's so bad, I don't think we would be able to get it to work, unfortunately. But then after that, then there's obviously America, which we could see. Which I mean, for sure they'll have tracks I'll be willing to do so on the event. So it'll be interesting. I don't know when the deadline is, but I'm quite eager to see where it's going to be, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I I don't know. Like, to me, I don't think there's a single venue in America who would be like, "Hey, we are going to host the 10 scale Worlds on a real off-road track outdoors." I don't think there's a single one who could realistically do it, and are like already involved in 10 scale. An 8 scale club, sure, they could do it. But then that's a whole different thing. They basically have to do a layout just for that race and then scrap it, make it an 8 scale layout.
I would love to
Indoors,
see
I think
AMAIN
America.
get it again. I would love to see AMAIN. I think they would be a really great facility, to be honest. Like outdoors, like they did in 2013. I think that would be an awesome facility. If it was any of the US places, that's probably up there.
I agree. I think that's the most likely one if it goes to America and outdoors. That's the most likely one. But then indoor facilities, there's so many good ones in America. If you think about it, like Hoosier, and then the Omaha Hobbyplex. God damn, there's so many. Like I can't remember the names of these that they hold, but basically the whole INS series, all of those venues could probably host the Worlds. So there's a lot. There's a lot of venues who could do that in America. But again, you would come into the issue that you would run on slicks and no sauce because IFMAR doesn't allow sauce. So I think that I think Hobby Action people was a bit disappointed because it like the Americans didn't like it, but they still had an advantage, but they just didn't like it. It was like, and the drivability of that was bad. The raceability of that was rather bad. So yeah, I think that's a sort of a bad call in a lot of ways, at least for now until they figure out something new. Maybe if they went for like thread tires, like dirt webs and no sauce, maybe that would be one because that's how they ran it at OCRC. So I think that would be one, like we do race at OCRC. That's how they ran it then. So maybe if they did that, I think the slicks was a total mistake. But yeah, then yeah, as you said with Europe, I think like, and I have to be honest, 90% of the Astro tracks out there without proper piping and infield, carpets and so on, they don't look like they're world class tracks. Like that's
Which
something you have to say.
I actually do agree with you on that. As much as as much as my country will kill me, I do agree with that.
Yeah, because if you look at this track here, they had grass infields, dirt track, and nice pipes, nice curbs, painted nice curbs, and a beautiful venue and beautiful like background on that. And even if you look at Hobby Action, it was basically it looks like poor because the infield is just like dirt colored. It's white pipes, black, like really dark brown dirt. It doesn't look very like worlds worthy, like at least OCRC, the good thing about that was it looked really pretty, but no diss to Hobby Action, no diss to like Robin Hood and so on, but I think that is a big issue with 10 scale in general, because they race in a different way, where 8 scale is like no matter where you go, the track always looked somewhat spectacular because they're big, they have pipes, they have curbs and all of that stuff. There are very few tracks which look underwhelming in that sense. And I think that's very important for a world championship. I think that's something you have to take into account as well. That has to look presentable. So that's why I think at the end of the day, when the decision comes, it's going to go to China because they have all of those things they can manage. It's indoors, but not like fully indoors. It's covered. And they have real dirt, but they don't have this issue of having to build an 10 scale track and an 8 scale track and so on. That's just sort of all those things. When you factor in the natural end result, I think is it's going to go to China like it did last time when the situation happened. Then it's going to go to Europe, and then it's going to go to America. I think that's just how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot I agree with you on there. To be honest, especially with some of the Astro tracks for sure. I'm sure there are venues for Astro tracks there which are amazing, but it just seems to. I was thinking it generally just seems like the dirt tracks always seem to have a better venue. I'm not kind of sure why. I don't know, just if they're good enough to have a dirt track, then because you have to treat it well all the time, it seems maybe they have the funds to kind of have a good venue. Because I know, don't get me like, Robin is a fantastic venue, but I have to be like, if I compare it to what, for example, Australia had, like it's, or like what Hobby Action has, for example, it's kind of hard to compare.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's a tough one in a lot of ways, and even when you think about some of these 8 scale tracks, there are ones where the track is spectacular, but then the venue is like you barely have fucking toilets. So that's something that is it really affects the atmosphere of the event and the importance of the event. I think those are things that us as racers who watch the race and not actually at the venue, for us, we couldn't care less about that. But for someone like IFMAR, who has to make sure all of the things are taken care of, the other things do make more sense. And also for IFMAR, they have to make sure that they have a nice hotel and spa around so they can
Yeah,
enjoy that.
profit. Profit. I mean, make sure the clubs have enough money to live after.
That's true. Yeah, that's something you actually have to think about. I don't know if IFMAR really, unfortunately, cares too much about that. Maybe with the new leadership, there's more thought into that. But yeah, I'll digress on that one. We've been going on for 4 hours. I think it's time to end this. Don't you think?
Yeah, I can already sense what Keenan's gonna say. So, so yeah, I think let's knock it on the head. But I just gotta say, just Percy, obviously a huge thanks to the Hills Off-Road Club for putting on the show. It was a fantastic track facility. Huge thanks to RC Media. It was great working with them as well. I can't complain with them about them other than IFMAR not letting us film on track for the last 2 legs, but that's a whole thing in itself. And also just want to kind of say a last thing, I didn't really touch on it, is I did vlog this Worlds, so I want to say a huge thanks to J Concepts for sponsoring that. So I am currently editing that, so hopefully by the time this is up, maybe in a few days, you guys will see it. So that'll be a long vlog, but it'll be a really cool experience for you guys to see how the Worlds was from my side. So yeah, for me, really, yeah, that was a really awesome Worlds, and yeah, they've gone on for quite a long time. So I think we should wrap this puppy up.
Yeah. Yeah. I rarely give shout outs. You're much more nicer. You remember to thank people and give shout outs and so on. But I do want to say to the Hills Off-Road RC Club that every time I went to a big race, and there was talks about what was the best Worlds and what was the best event and blah blah blah, Vasa 2011 comes up. They say that was such a good Worlds, good organization. They had so much fun. Things were so good. I think this Worlds here in Sydney, that's gonna be like that Worlds of this next 10 years. Like when people refer to what was a good Worlds and what they did well, I think this is one that they will refer to. So I think that's a big thing to take away from this for the Aussies. So congrats to you guys. You did a hell of a job. And let's hope we have another good one here in 2 years, wherever it may be. And next year we have 8-scale Worlds. We have Worlds every year, dude.
Yeah, but it's always Worlds, keeping the hobby growing. So, got plenty to look forward to next year.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks to our sponsors one more time, J Concepts, our title sponsor, for all of your support. Our premium sponsors, Hightech, Sidewinder, Latera, Invisiblespeed, ML Toys, Sidepiece Racing, and Dollar Hobbyz. And then our other sponsors, Fly Sky, Get Shit Done Coffee, Edit RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, Klinik RC. And thank you to the drivers. Thank you to you, Will. And thank you to Keenan for letting me run the show this week. I think some people like us, just the boys. I think some people miss Keenan. But something for everyone, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? We're allowed. You know what? Some people like us geeking out. I've actually had a lot of people say they like the geeking that we do. So you know what? It's good to do it every now and then. And this was a big event. There was a lot to cover. So, and I was there, so I was able to kind of give you guys a bit more insight of what it actually was like.
Yeah. All right. This was good. It was long, but it was good. I need to get all the need to wake up after these 4 hours of doing podcast.
Jeez.
Tune in next time. Share this to your friend. Like, subscribe. Subscribe to Will. I think you have a channel. Subscribe to my channel too. I haven't posted in 3 years, but you can subscribe to my channel as well. And bye bye for now, guys. See you next time.
See you guys next time.